Chapter 1076 Temple of God of Darkness. When the old woman teleported herself, Michael was taken aback in surprise. He had never anticipated a frail and seemingly weak old woman to execute teleportation so effortlessly. What caught him off guard even more were her parting words. "What could she have meant by this place is not what it appears?" Michael mumbled under his breath. His curiosity piqued. "What a freaky bitch. That old lady must know what happened to Carmela," the blonde brother remarked. "Who is she?" Michael inquired. Just a few moments earlier, he had little interest in the ongoing dispute. However, the old woman's cryptic words and the undeniable fact that he was not standing in a swamp had compelled him to take an active role in the situation. "Someone not to be trusted, that's for sure," replied the bald-headed brother. Then, the blonde-haired man scrutinized Michael closely. It became evident that they had never seen him in the vicinity before. "You're new around here. Where are you from?" the blonde young man queried. "I come from a distant land," Michael responded truthfully. "Don't tell me you've come seeking her healing, just like all those other outlanders," the bald-headed one snickered, providing Michael with an opening to engage further in the conversation without resorting to falsehood. Thus, Michael played along, feigning interest in seeking healing. "You're absolutely right," agreed Michael. "In that case, you've just sealed your fate. That old woman is touted as the miraculous healer, and everyone's hanging on to her every word," the bald-headed young man added with a hint of sarcasm. It was evident that both brothers were deeply skeptical of the old woman's supposed healing prowess and held a strong aversion towards her. "Well, it's been an interesting encounter. Thanks for not siding with her back there, even though she'll likely complain about it when you visit her healing abode. If you need a place to rest, our village is located directly to the north from here," the blonde young man offered, gesturing in the direction of the north. "We need to find our cousin. I preferred this place when it was just an ugly damn swamp," the bald-headed man grumbled, turning away and taking a few steps. Michael was taken aback upon hearing his words. "Wait," Michael called out, hastening his steps to catch up with the two brothers. They turned around as he approached. "Did you say this place was a swamp?" Michael inquired, his curiosity piqued. "Yeah, it used to be the Misty Swamps. Now look at it, turned into this vibrant valley by that damn old woman," the bald-headed young man replied with a trace of bitterness. "She must have employed some seriously powerful magic to transform a swamp like that," Ayag whispered, her words barely audible. "By any chance, do you know of any nearby temples?" Michael inquired. He refrained from mentioning the Temple of the God of Darkness, unsure of how the young men might react or whether they were even aware of such a temple's existence. To Michael's astonishment, the brothers were indeed familiar with the temple. There was one. A temple dedicated to the God of Darkness. "But that old woman razed it to the ground and built her dwelling in its place," the blonde young man explained. His brother chimed in with a snicker. "She branded the God of Darkness as evil, claiming it kept this place a swamp and attracted monsters. Yet, in my opinion, people weren't vanishing when that so-called evil temple stood there." He muttered the word evil in a hushed tone, punctuated by a derisive chuckle. "But ever since she took over and transformed this place, everything has gone horribly awry. Sadly, no one believes us. The entire village stands by her," the bald-headed one grumbled. The blonde-haired brother sighed softly in response. "You can't really blame them. She did convert this place into a vibrant valley. Merchants flock to our village now, filling our coffers with gold," the blonde-haired one reasoned. "Is there any chance that the disappearances of the villagers and your cousin aren't linked to the old woman?" Michael inquired. "I don't know. We just want our cousin back," the blonde young man replied with a heavy sigh, his voice wavering as his eyes welled up. The bald-headed man comforted his brother and then turned to address Michael. "Whatever you're dealing with, we hope you find the help you need." "We understand the feeling of helplessness all too well," the bald-headed man added, his voice tinged with empathy. "The quest mystery of the Misty Swamp has commenced. Find badass points. The mystery behind the disappearances in the Misty Swamp. Upon completing the quest, the host will receive 1 million badass points." Unexpectedly, Michael heard the system's voice resonating in his head. To his surprise, the system had initiated another quest, a new functionality of the system. "Let me give you a hand in your search." "3 heads are better than 2, Michael offered, extending his assistance to the brothers. Michael had several reasons to offer his help to the brothers. First and foremost, he had decoded a Morse code message instructing him to go to the God of Darkness temple in the misty swamps. He was determined to uncover the identity of the individual who had left that coded message. Second, his curiosity about the ongoing disappearances motivated him. Thirdly, the promise of 1 million Baddest points was undeniably appealing. Lastly, the brothers themselves appeared to be genuine and kind-hearted souls, and assisting them in achieving their goal aligned well with his intentions. The two brothers seemed surprised by his offer but wore skeptical expressions. "Why would you want to help us? Assisting us could jeopardize any chance you have of receiving healing from that old woman. We were driven out of our village for opposing her." The young blonde one voiced his concerns. "We were exiled, and if you help us, you might face the same fate of being banned from our village," added the bald one. "That's not an issue. I have a knack for finding people, and you'll need my help. Besides, I don't give a damn if your village exiled me." "I'm an outsider," Michael replied nonchalantly. After sharing a glance, the two brothers let out resigned sighs, realizing that their desperation to locate their cousin overrode their concerns, and they reluctantly accepted Michael's offer of help. Vidora remained perched silently on Michael's shoulder, observing as he followed the brothers through the rugged path. "I'm Veer, and this is my brother Hal," introduced the blonde young man. "Nice to meet you both." "I'm John," Michael responded, using a fabricated name. Revealing his true identity as the God of Darkness to the brothers would undoubtedly leave them crap their pants. "What about the three-headed snake on your shoulder? We've never seen its kind in this part of our land," Hal inquired as he guided Michael along the dirt path. "Don't take this the wrong way, but are you by any chance a worshipper of the God of Darkness? I mean, you're dressed all in black and you asked us about a temple nearby." Vera, the blonde-haired young man, inquired of Michael. "Yeah, he does give off that vibe, like one of the God of Darkness followers. He even has a three-headed pet on his shoulder, just like the statue in that temple," Hal chimed in, catching Michael off guard. "You've seen the temple?" Michael asked. "Yeah, when we were kids. Carmela, some of our friends, and I used to sneak into the temple. There was a statue of the God of Darkness and his pet Hydra inside," Veer recalled with a nostalgic smile. "It's rare to come across worshippers of the God of Darkness." "Are you one, John?" Hal inquired. "Not really. I just like to wear black clothes," Michael responded casually, deciding there was no need to reveal his true identity as the God of Darkness himself. As their conversation continued, Michael led the way to a small stream, crossing it over a quaint bridge. Once they were on the other side, a picturesque garden and a cozy cabin with a creaking windmill came into view. "That's where the old woman lives," Michael pointed out, indicating the cabin. As they approached the cabin, a sudden commotion caught their attention. A small figure with vibrant red hair and a rather prominent nose came bounding towards them. The halfling's expression was a mix of annoyance and concern as he addressed the two brothers with a shrill voice. "You two! What are you doing here again?" The halfling yelled, his voice high-pitched and agitated. "Lady Griffey explicitly said she doesn't want to see you both, and she's extremely upset with your constant presence." Michael observed the scene with intrigue, both surprised and amused to encounter a halfling in this land. He watched as the halfling continued to admonish the brothers, his gestures animated and his demeanor remarkably authoritative for someone of his stature. Despite the halfling's tirade, Michael remained composed, his expression neutral as he silently assessed the situation. The halfling's tirade continued unabated, his words flowing with a mixture of frustration and anger. The two brothers, however, seemed determined to get their point across, and their voices rose in protest. "We need to speak with Griffey." "It's important," the bald-headed brother demanded, his face etched with a mixture of concern and desperation. His blonde-haired counterpart chimed in, "We're not leaving until we talk to her. Carmela's life might be in danger." Just as the tension was escalating, chaos erupted in an unexpected fashion. Vidora suddenly lunged forward, her serpentine form striking with remarkable speed. Her three heads darted towards the halfling, and Iag's sharp teeth found purchase on the halfling's neck. A shriek of pain echoed through the air as the halfling's screams reverberated, mixing with his frantic curses. Michael, the two brothers, and even the old woman's cabin seemed frozen in shock. The scene unfolded so abruptly that they could hardly believe their eyes. "What in the blonde brother began, his voice a mixture of astonishment and confusion. The halfling's face turned an alarming shade of red as Iag's bite took its toll. His arm flailed, swatting at Vidora in a desperate attempt to free himself from her grip. In the midst of the chaos, his hand rose menacingly, poised to strike Vidora across her scaled head. But before the halfling's hand could make contact, Michael moved. A swift kick landed solidly on the halfling's side, and the impact sent the small figure flying. He crashed into a nearby tree, the force of the blow leaving him momentarily stunned. "Enough!" Michael's voice cut through the air, firm and commanding. His dark eyes bore into the halfling, his expression unwavering. The halfling groaned, writhing on the ground in pain, his anger momentarily overtaken by shock at the unexpected turn of events. "We're leaving," Michael stated firmly, his tone conveying a mix of authority and urgency. He quickly assessed the situation, realizing there was more to Vidora's actions than met the eye. Turning his attention to the two brothers, Michael's voice was composed yet compelling. "Come with me," he instructed, his words carrying an air of leadership. The brothers, still taken aback by the unexpected turn of events, hesitated only for a moment before falling in line behind Michael. As they hurried away from the scene, the halfling's fury erupted anew. Shouts and rocks were hurled their way, some of the rocks finding their mark and striking Michael in the back. As they moved away from the scene, the halfling's shouts faded into the background like distant echoes. As they distanced themselves from the cabin, Hall's emotions swung between astonishment and anger, his frustration finally boiling over. "What the fuck was that, John?" he bellowed, his voice dripping with rage. Michael's composure remained unshaken, even in the face of Hall's outburst. The two brothers watched in surprise as the three-headed snake on Michael's shoulder nuzzled against his ear, a peculiar interaction that almost seemed like a form of communication. Amid the intensity of the moment, Michael's voice cut through the air, his words carrying an unexpected revelation that left the brothers stunned. "That halfling we encountered back there. He might not be a halfling at all." Michael's statement hung in the air, hanging heavy with implications that neither of the brothers could have foreseen. Chapter 1077 Deepening Mystery of Misty Swamps. The two brothers found themselves utterly bewildered and perplexed by Michael's cryptic words. Meanwhile, Michael led them away from Lady Griffey's cabin, stopping behind a tree strategically positioned to grant them a view of the house while also shielding them from the halfling's outbursts. "You've lost your mind, he's definitely a halfling," protested Hal, his impatience making his voice tense. Veer, however, furrowed his brow, looking at Michael with a mixture of curiosity and uncertainty. "We know him. His name is Poppy, the assistant of that old woman," Veer explained. "If I'm wrong, which rarely happens, I'll apologize to the halfling. But if I'm right, knocking on the old woman's door might not be a great idea," Michael warned, his voice laced with a sense of caution. "I have no idea what you're talking about," Hal retorted, but his words ceased abruptly when Michael conjured emerald green flames. The sight of the dancing green flames above Michael's hands left Veer and Hal wide-eyed in astonishment. "You're an alchemist," Veer exclaimed as realization dawned on him. However, instead of elaborating, Michael swiftly summoned a collection of ingredients into his other hand and cast them into the flames. With another gesture, he produced a vial containing crimson-red blood. "This is pure halfling blood," Michael revealed, eliciting shock from the two brothers. Their gazes remained fixed on Michael, their expressions unflinching. "What I'm creating is a potion that will confirm whether we encountered a real halfling or not," Michael explained as the essence of the alchemical component's head added formed into floating beads above the flames. Gradually, these beads merged, resulting in a light green potion. "A drop of this potion will turn pure halfling blood blue," Michael informed them, his focus on the liquid suspended above the flames. Upon his command, a single drop descended into the vial of halfling blood in his other hand. True to Michael's assertion, the blood instantaneously changed to blue. Thanks to his subordinates, he possessed blood samples from every race, from humans to orcs. He had never anticipated that having halfling blood would be useful, but he trusted Vidora's instincts and Sarba's sense of an ancient evil presence around the halfling they had encountered. "Now let's test Poppy's blood," Michael announced, his gaze shifting to Vidora perched on his shoulder. The two brothers couldn't help but notice the three-headed snake. One of the snake's heads, the one that had bitten Poppy, opened its mouth to reveal its fangs. To the astonishment of Hal and Veer, blood dripped down, falling into an empty vial suspended in the air. "It's time for the truth," Michael declared, his tone resolute as he placed a drop of the green liquid into Poppy's blood. Veer and Hal stared at the vial, their attention unwavering. Their astonishment reached new heights when the blood transformed into a putrid black liquid. What does this mean? Veer murmured, the overwhelming mix of shock, confusion, and disbelief clouding his thoughts. Halfling, Michael stated matter-of-factly. This is all. Veer began to say, only to be cut off by Michael's. Well, it seems that whatever Poppy is, he most certainly isn't a halfling, Michael stated matter-of-factly. This is all. Veer began to say, only to be cut off by Michael's intervention. Deep down, both of you suspected something was off about the old woman, didn't you? This might be your only chance to uncover her true nature and save your cousin, Michael stated, his voice adopting a serious undertone. Caught in the grip of shock, Hal finally managed to find his words, his disbelief evident. Who are you really? He asked, struggling to reconcile the image of the seemingly ordinary young man they'd encountered moments ago with the alchemist standing before them. Not going to lie, but I'm the one who can help you find your cousin, Michael replied candidly. Still reeling from the revelation, the two brothers attempted to absorb the information. Veer took a deep breath and ventured to ask, so what do you think Poppy is? Michael's response carried a hint of uncertainty. Something we haven't encountered before. Just as Veer observed the three-headed snake nuzzling at John's ear again, Hal interjected with skepticism. Tell me that three-headed snake didn't just talk to you. Michael's laughter broke through the tension, easing the atmosphere around them. They're special, yes. But let me ask you something. How long did it take to transform the misty swamps into this beautiful valley? About 4 months, Veer confirmed, recalling the timeline. Do you really think that such a dramatic transformation could occur in such a short span of time without the use of magic? Michael inquired. Surprising even themselves, the two brothers had posed the same question to their village elder. However, their inquiries were met with stern warnings from the villagers, who fervently supported Griffey, the woman responsible for the valley's enchanting change. We asked that same question. But the villagers yelled at us, and even Carmela, she started to act oddly after being around the old woman, Hal explained. How strangely? Michael inquired, his commanding aura and demeanor causing the brothers to find solace and trust in him, leading them to open up more freely. Sneaking out in the middle of the night, speaking about her deceased brother during her sleep. Even sleepwalking, though she claimed not to remember any of it. Veer shared, the weight of concern evident in his voice. Have either of you attempted to follow her during the night? Michael inquired, his curiosity piqued by the unfolding mystery. We tried, but she always managed to slip away from us. But there's one thing we're certain of, she frequently visits Griffey during daylight hours, Hal explained. So, all leads point to Griffey, and she has a helper posing as a halfling, Michael mused, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. Let's take a closer look at her residence, Michael suggested. But you just led us away from there, Hal protested. But his objection was swiftly met with the sight of Michael summoning drones with a mere flick of his wrist. What are these? Veer and Hal gazed upward, marveling at the hovering drones that appeared before them. Michael commanded the drones to approach Griffey's house, holding a glass mirror that seemed to play a role in the process. Whoa, is this? Hal's voice trailed off in astonishment as he saw the surrounding area, but through the drone's aerial perspective displayed in the mirror. However, the feed from the drones suddenly flickered, and Michael observed the obstruction through the trees, realizing that the drones were unable to proceed. What's happening? Veer inquired, the confusion evident in his tone. It's a force field, Michael explained, his voice tinged with a mixture of amusement and surprise. A force field? How powerful is that old woman? Hal's raised eyebrows conveyed a blend of shock and trepidation as the realization dawned on the brothers. Acting swiftly, Michael willed the drones to return to him and, with another gesture, caused them to vanish into his system's storage. I believe Griffey is far from being an ordinary village healer. You two are right about her. She is definitely hiding something, Michael declared, confirming the brothers' instincts. What should we do now? Veer inquired, uncertainty creeping into his voice. Rather than offering an immediate response, Michael regarded the two brothers with a peculiar smile forming on his lips. Do you really want to find your cousin Carmela and be willing to do whatever it takes? Michael asked. Yes, the brothers replied in unison, their determination to rescue their cousin unwavering. Good. Because this might get bloody, Michael chuckled. Wait here for me, Michael instructed. Before the brothers could voice any objections, He walked around the tree and headed straight back toward Griffey's residence, his intent resolute. As Michael walked back towards the tree, the halfling noticed his approach and erupted into a tirade of shouting, accompanied by a string of foul language. You bastard! You think you can just come back here after sucker kicking me? I'll take you down, you son of a bitch! Get any closer, and I'll tear you apart. The halfling yelled, his face contorted in anger. And you damn snake! Bit me like a coward! He directed his fury not only at Michael but also at the three-headed snake on Michael's shoulder, hurling curses at it for the bite it had inflicted earlier. Despite the onslaught of profanity and aggression, Michael remained remarkably composed. He raised his index finger to his lips, signaling the halfling to quiet down. But the halfling was beyond reason. He continued to shout and throw rocks at Michael in a futile attempt to drive him away. However, in a swift and unexpected move, Michael lunged forward, seizing the halfling by the neck. The halfling's shouting was cut off abruptly, replaced by a choked gasp of surprise and fear. With deft precision, Michael extracted a syringe from his pocket. The halfling struggled against Michael's grip, his face reddening as he fought for breath. You think you can just shut me up, you bastard? The halfling wheezed, his voice strained. Michael's gaze bore into the halfling's eyes, his expression calm. Without a word, he plunged the syringe into the halfling's neck, injecting him with a paralyzing poison. The halfling's body went limp, his eyes widening in shock as the poison took effect. His voice faded into silence, and his struggles ceased as his muscles grew slack. He stared at Michael with a mix of anger and fear, his ability to curse now robbed from him. Looks like you won't be causing any more trouble, Michael said calmly, his voice devoid of emotion. Michael hauled Poppy's paralyzed body over to where Veer and Hal stood, shock etched across their faces as they stared at the motionless form of the halfling. What did you do? Hal's voice trembled with disbelief as he struggled to comprehend the situation. Michael's response was swift and forceful. He slammed Poppy's limp body against a nearby tree, making a dull thud. Is he alive? Veer's voice quivered with a mix of concern and fear as he examined Poppy's unmoving figure. Veer's sharp gaze caught a subtle movement in Poppy's eyes, indicating that he was still conscious and aware. He's just paralyzed, Michael replied calmly, his tone revealing little emotion. Where is Carmela? Hal's voice dripped with anger and desperation. He demanded answers, his emotions bubbling to the surface. He can't talk, Veer noted, his eyes darting between Poppy and Michael. In response, Michael retrieved another syringe and positioned it near Poppy's mouth. I need some answers, Poppy. I know you're not what you appear to be, and if you want to keep your heart intact, you better answer my questions truthfully. Michael's words cut through the air, dripping with a chilling calmness. Poppy's widened eyes reflected a mix of shock, surprise, and growing fear at the gravity of the situation. Chapter 1078 New Race and New Threat. Poppy's body was immobilized by the effects of the paralyzing poison, rendering him unable to struggle or even shout. His mouth barely moved, and his attempts to resist were futile against the potent poison coursing through his veins. Michael proceeded to inject a colorless liquid into Poppy's mouth, giving him the ability to speak by giving the antidote to the paralyzing poison around his mouth. What are you? Michael's tone was cold and calculating as he posed his question, leaving Hal and Veer trembling with a mixture of fear and excitement. The two brothers, unaccustomed to such perilous situations, were captivated by the unfolding drama of seeing Michael hold Poppy captive, a figure who had once been arrogant and disdainful towards them. Their desperation for answers and help overshadowed any reservations they might have had. I've never felt like this before, Hal admitted, his anticipation barely contained. The prospect of breaking away from their ordinary lives and facing the unknown intrigued them both. Poppy's voice wavered as he managed to speak through his paralyzing condition, struggling to comprehend the dire situation he found himself in. What kind of twisted sick person are you? I'm Poppy, Griffey's helper, he managed to stammer, only to witness Michael retrieve yet another injection, this time filled with a red liquid. Poppy's panic escalated as Michael explained the effects of the new potion, the uncertainty of his fate looming before him. This will activate all the pain receptors in your body simultaneously. In simple terms, you'll experience excruciating pain in every inch of your being, Michael explained, his voice devoid of empathy. No. Please. No, Poppy pleaded in desperation. I warned you not to lie to me, Michael retorted coldly. As he moved to inject the potion into Poppy's neck, Veer intervened, grasping Michael's hand. John, do we really need to go this far? I hate this guy as much as the next guy, but this seems excessive, Veer implored with a hint of compassion in his voice. Whose life do you value the most? A fakeling like his or your cousin's? Michael posed a chilling question, forcing Veer to confront the gravity of their situation. The choice between Poppy's well-being and the life of their missing cousin weighed heavily on his mind. Reluctantly, Veer released Michael's hand, allowing him to administer the painful potion. Keep his mouth shut, Michael ordered Hal, who complied willingly due to his deep-seated resentment for Griffey and Poppy. Hal's determination to find Carmela was fueled by an intense hatred that knew no bounds. As the potion entered Poppy's bloodstream, his screams of agony were stifled by Hal's hand over his mouth. Piece of shit, Hal cursed through gritted teeth as Poppy's pain-fueled bite struck his hand. Stop biting if you're ready to tell the truth, Michael commanded, his icy gaze fixed on Poppy. Although Poppy attempted to maintain his resolve, the excruciating pain chipped away at his defenses. He eventually ceased biting Hal's hand as Hal slowly withdrew it. You three have no idea what you're getting into, Poppy rasped, his words punctuated by labored breaths. I've heard that line countless times, Michael remarked, his tone laced with cynicism. Now, unless you want me to administer another potion, one far worse than this, tell me who you truly are and what your intentions are, Michael demanded, his voice turned colder. Poppy's fear was palpable, his eyes darting around in a frantic search for an escape from his dire predicament. The fear and uncertainty that flickered in his eyes were unmistakable to Michael. I'll ask you one final time, Michael reiterated, his tone unyielding as he retrieved yet another syringe. This time, the syringe contained a crimson-red liquid. What's this one for? Hal inquired, his curiosity piqued by the new concoction. He doesn't want to find out, trust me, Michael replied with a sardonic grin, directing his gaze towards Poppy. In the face of the impending threat, Poppy's resolve began to crumble. Michael's actions spoke louder than words, prompting him to yield to the pressure. I am a bloodling. Poppy's voice wavered slightly as he responded, sending a shock through Veer and Hal. A bloodling? What is that? Veer questioned, his confusion mirroring the unfamiliarity of the term. Is this your true form? Michael inquired, his gaze piercing through Poppy. No, Poppy admitted, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and resignation. Reveal your true form, and I promise you, I'll release you, Michael offered, his words carrying a genuine undertone. The proposition held a glimmer of hope that resonated with Poppy. However, Veer and Hal were equally taken aback by Michael's actions, particularly as he proceeded to inject Poppy with the new crimson-red liquid. The paralysis already coursing through Poppy's body rendered him oblivious to the needle's puncture. Give me the antidote for my paralysis, Poppy growled, his frustration evident. Michael acknowledged his demand and retrieved a syringe filled with colorless liquid. As the liquid flowed into his bloodstream, Poppy experienced the gradual return of motor control. He clenched his hands and flexed his legs, testing his newfound mobility. Try anything funny, and I'll crush you like a bug, Michael's cold words resonated as he released his grip, allowing Poppy to fall to the ground. Poppy scanned the trio of men before him, feeling particularly unnerved by the figure in dark robes. Go ahead, reveal your true form, Michael urged. He lunged at Michael in a desperate attack. However, he had severely underestimated Michael's reflexes. Yet, Poppy had his own plans. Swiftly conjuring a blood-red sword, he lunged at Michael in a desperate attack. However, he had severely underestimated Michael's reflexes. In a single fluid motion, Michael delivered a powerful kick to Poppy's chest, propelling him into the tree. Michael's boot pressed onto Poppy's neck, immobilizing him once again. I told you, Michael's voice remained chillingly composed. Despite Poppy's attempts to retaliate, even managing to swing his dagger, Michael deftly disarmed him with a swift kick. Veer's hesitation lingered as he watched Michael's ruthlessness unfold. Although harboring no sympathy for Poppy, he struggled to witness a living being subjected to such merciless treatment. John! Veer's voice wavered with concern. His eyes locked on the struggling bloodling. Don't worry. He will show his true self soon, Michael replied calmly, tightening his grip and applying more pressure to Poppy's throat. Poppy's struggles intensified under Michael's unyielding boot on his neck. His curses grew more fervent as his face paled, and he gasped for precious air. "He's dying," Hall's voice trembled as he observed Poppy's dire state. "You don't have much time," Michael coldly remarked, his grip remaining firm. Suddenly, a primal roar erupted from Poppy's lips, resonating through the forest. His body contorted as a transformation gripped him. His fair skin took on a sickly dark green hue, while his nails elongated into sharp, claw-like appendages. His eyes turned a menacing blood red, and his teeth morphed into vicious, shark-like fangs. As Poppy's monstrous form stood before them, the truth of his identity was laid bare. The confrontation had led to an unsettling unveiling, increasing the tension and mystery surrounding their quest. "Well, well, well, look at this ugliness," Michael commented with a touch of amusement. As Poppy's true form was unveiled, Michael lifted his boot off Poppy's neck. "You've stirred up a hornet's nest that will burn you to the ground. You three are fucked," Poppy shouted, his anger palpable. With his newfound appearance, he dashed away from Michael, his path leading straight toward Griffey's home. "He's escaping." Hall's panic was evident in his voice. However, Michael let out a chuckle. "Let him go. It's time we pay another visit to Griffey." Cracking his neck nonchalantly, Michael began to move toward Griffey's home with measured steps. His demeanor composed and unwavering despite the escalating mysteries and dangers that surrounded them. Michael led the way, flanked by Hal and Veer as they approached Griffey's home. Meanwhile, Poppy sprinted toward Griffey's home, casting glances over his shoulder at Michael and the brothers. His bloodshot eyes were filled with fury, and he couldn't resist hurling curses at the tree as he passed by. "Stupid motherfucker thinks he's clever, huh?" Poppy muttered through gritted teeth, his voice a venomous snarl. "I'll show him. And that fucking snake too." His breath was ragged, a mixture of pain, rage, and fear fueling his desperate flight toward the one place he thought could offer refuge. Yet, his curses and insults remained constant, each step echoing with his seething hatred for the group behind him. As he neared the entrance of Griffey's home, Poppy's heart raced faster. "Fucking assholes. I'll rip you apart, you motherfucking son of a bitch." Poppy's voice was a mixture of rage and desperation as he continued to curse and swear at the group. Ignoring the torrent of curses from Poppy, Michael strode forward and entered Griffey's home. After a few moments, they arrived at Griffey's doorsteps. "It's locked," Hal reported after trying the knobs with no success. "It's not." Michael couldn't help but snicker at the situation. With a confident grin, he raised his foot and delivered a powerful kick, sending the door swinging open. The forceful entry earned Michael a surge of satisfaction, triggering a sense of nostalgia from his mortal experiences. A fleeting memory of his time in the mortal realm flitted across his mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 5,000 badass points. Stepping inside, Michael found himself in a cozily decorated house, exuding an air of magic and charm. Everything was crafted from wood and neatly arranged, and a warm fireplace added an extra touch of enchantment to the surroundings. The atmosphere reminded Michael of a place straight out of a fairy tale, filling him with a sense of wonder and curiosity. Upon entering the house, Michael's gaze fell upon Griffey positioned by the window, her back turned to him as she peered outside. Leaning against a sofa, she exuded an air of nonchalance, with Poppy standing at her side. "Look, it's them. Kill them." Poppy's voice brimmed with unchecked anger, a surge of fury in the face of their presence. "Poppy, calm down," Griffey's voice, contrasting Poppy's agitation, resonated with a composed tone as she turned the sofa to face the room. Yet, her attempt at serenity was short-lived when she found herself face-to-face with Michael. "It's you again," she remarked, an air of annoyance tinging her words. "Young man, you'd better have a damn good reason for laying a hand on and tormenting my humble servant." "Quit the theatrics, old woman," he retorted sharply. "He's a bloodling posing as a halfling. So, what exactly are you?" Instead of addressing Michael's question, the old woman simply waved her hand, and with an almost eerie precision, the door sealed shut behind them. Hal, driven by a sense of urgency, hurriedly rushed to the door, attempting to pry it open, but its obstinance defied his efforts. "Forget what happened here and leave my realm," the old woman's voice dripped with a malevolent undertone, her command laced with dark intent. Michael calmly shrugged. "Sure thing. Just tell us where Carmela is, and we'll be on our way." We know you are hiding her. What have you done to Carmela? Hall's voice surged with a potent mix of concern and anger, his emotions laid bare. The old woman's response was a chilling laughter, an echo of her amusement in the face of their outrage. I haven't done anything to Carmela. Her voice remained calm, and with a single clap of her hands, the room shifted. Soon, the presence of more bloodlings emerged from the shadows. They escorted a young woman with golden hair, garbed in fancy robes that befitted a princess. Halvir! Carmela's voice rang out in a mixture of shock and elation, her astonishment at seeing them evident in her eyes. However, her delight was swiftly overshadowed by fear as her gaze settled on Griffey. Go away! I don't need you too! Carmela's joyful cry transformed into a desperate plea, her eyes wide with a terror that seemed directed not at her cousins, but at the enigmatic figure before her. Carmela! Veer and Hall's excitement surged as they began to move towards her, driven by the relief of finding her. Yet, their urgency halted abruptly when they approached Griffey. In a swift and uncanny motion, the old woman raised her hand, conjuring a fierce blast of wind that tore through the air with violent intent. Hal and Veer were swept off their feet, their forms sent hurtling through the air before being forcefully pinned against the wall. Now you are going to pay for everything you have done, young man. Griffey's voice, once calm and collected, took on an otherworldly resonance, transforming into a gruff and thunderous growl that seemed entirely incongruent with her fragile frame. The voice was ancient, bearing a malevolent power that sent shivers down the spines of all who heard it. Chapter 1079. Facing an ancient monster, the old woman's lips curled into a sinister snicker as she addressed Michael, her tone dripping with a chilling mix of mockery and threat. You shouldn't have poked your nose into matters that don't concern you, young man. An uneasy silence gripped the room as her words lingered, heavy with threat. Suddenly, the atmosphere twisted with shock as the old woman underwent a grotesque transformation. Her frame contorted, skin turning ashen and leathery like decay. Unnaturally hunched, she surged to 8 feet, her limbs stretching into razor claws. Finally showing yourself, huh? Michael sneered inside. A putrid stench pervaded, maggots wriggling from her skin. Once benign eyes turned into seething hollows, while jagged rotted teeth jutted from her twisted mouth. The monstrous form defied nature's bounds, a maelstrom of horror that submerged the room in fear. By the gods! Veer's voice cracked with shock, his face a mask of horror. Holy! What is that? Hall's voice trembled, his disbelief bordering on terror. Carmela's cry mixed with their astonishment, her voice a desperate plea laced with fear. No, please! Spare them! The monstrous being, her form contorted and twisted beyond recognition, shot Carmela a malevolent glare. You will pay for what your cousins have done, her voice a guttural growl, foretold of unfathomable cruelty. With a swift, ominous wave of her clawed hand, a vicious gust of wind surged forth, shrouding Carmela in a maelstrom of energy. In the blink of an eye, Carmela vanished, as if swallowed by the wind itself, leaving her cousins in shocked silence. Their cries were stifled, replaced by an eerie emptiness that settled over the room. The monstrous form turned its gaze back to Michael, its hollow sockets seething with a malevolence that transcended the boundaries of the natural world. Its voice, a disturbing amalgamation of the old woman's and something more sinister, dripped with mockery and taunt. You meddle in affairs you cannot comprehend, young man. Your presence here will be your undoing. Let her go. Veer's voice quivered with rage and desperation, his eyes burning with a fierce determination. Release her now. Hall's cry echoed his brother's sentiment, his voice marked by a fierce urgency. But the monstrous entity, her form radiating malevolence, merely responded with a dismissive wave of her hand. In that moment, veins of darkness erupted from the very walls, snaking forward like serpents of shadow. With eerie precision, they wrapped themselves around the brothers' mouths, silencing their pleas and cries in an instant. Veer and Hall's voices were muffled, their eyes wide with shock and alarm. However, Michael remained calm as Griffey, now showed her true self as a monster looked at her bloodling minions, including Poppy. Does this sight fill you with fear, young man? Griffey's voice dripped with a sinister curiosity, her lips curling back to reveal a long, slithering tongue. A yearning hunger tainted her tone, a thirst for the anticipation of a fresh victim. If anything, this makes me feel disgusted, Michael retorted, his response cutting through the air with a touch of defiance. He met her unsettling gaze head-on, unflinching in the face of her malevolence. The old woman who turned into a monstrous being seemed taken aback by his retort, a momentary flicker of surprise crossing her grotesque features. "I'm not one to indulge in body shaming," Michael continued with a sigh, his voice carrying an exasperated edge. "But my God, you've really outdone yourself in the ugly department." The unexpected jab seemed to strike a nerve, a mixture of disbelief and anger flashing across the creature's hollow eyes. "Let's see if your actions can back your words." "My minions, go bring him to my feet," Griffey commanded, her voice laced with a twisted blend of authority and anticipation. The bloodlings, each standing around 3 feet tall, swiftly responded to her orders. Without a trace of fear, they surged forward toward Michael, their movements determined and predatory. Hisses and curses dripped from their lips as they closed in on him, an eerie chorus of malice that echoed through the air. The bloodlings surged forward, their voices dripping with disdain as they spat out derogatory terms. "Human scum," one sneered, while another hissed, "Mortal fool." With no hesitation, they rushed toward him, their movements quick and purposeful. Yet, Michael remained eerily calm in the face of their onslaught. He calmly cracked his fingers, a casual gesture that belied the tension of the moment. In the midst of their aggression, Poppy's voice suddenly pierced the air, cutting through the tension. "Avoid his needles, you fools!" he bellowed at his fellow bloodlings, his words echoing with a mix of caution and urgency. The sudden outburst confused some of the bloodlings, a flicker of hesitation crossing their eyes. Michael seized this moment of uncertainty to his advantage. His hand moved with deliberate slowness, revealing the hilt of a dark sword hidden at his side. The glint of malevolent steel caught the dim light, casting an eerie shimmer that danced across the room. With a taunting grin, Michael addressed the advancing bloodlings. "Well, let me see what you bloodlings are made of." His voice carried a mocking challenge, each word an unspoken dare that hung in the air. As the bloodlings lunged, their distorted features contorted with a mix of fury and desperation, Michael's response was a symphony of controlled aggression. His fingers wrapped around the hilt of the dark sword, and with a fluid motion, he unsheathed it, revealing the blade that glimmered with a malevolent aura. The clash erupted with a deafening intensity. Michael moved with an uncanny precision, his strikes landing true and merciless. The sword cleaved through the air with a lethal grace, the blade connecting with the bloodlings' frail forms. Blood splattered in grotesque arcs, painting the scene with a morbid red as the bloodlings' once vicious hisses transformed into anguished cries of pain and shock. "You'll pay for this," one of the bloodlings spat, his voice carrying a note of desperation as he writhed in agony. Michael's reply was a grim smile, his movements a chilling display of mastery. With each swing, heads and bodies were severed as if they were naught but fragile twigs. The room echoed with the sickening sound of flesh meeting steel, punctuated by the wet thuds of severed limbs hitting the ground. In a matter of minutes, the battle had turned into a massacre. The once threatening bloodlings now lay in lifeless heaps, their torment at an end. Amidst the aftermath, the old woman's voice carried a tinge of amusement. "Impressive. Your skills are quite the spectacle, young man." Poppy's response, however, held a tinge of fear. "This isn't good. He's more lethal than I thought." "Poppy, come here." The old woman's sudden call reached out for her sole remaining minion. While Michael had indeed ignited fear within Poppy, it was clear that the terror inspired by Griffey was far greater. With his tiny legs carrying him swiftly, Poppy rushed to Griffey's side, his posture stiff and obedient like a soldier answering a superior's command. "Yes, Griffey." Poppy's voice rang out, his tone an eager mix of compliance and loyalty as he stood at attention. Yet, the unfolding scene took an unexpected and horrific turn, jolting Michael's senses. The old woman's hands darted forward to snatch Poppy without warning. Michael watched in shock as Griffey's mouth stretched wide open, a chilling grin that seemed to defy the limits of human anatomy. "What the?" Iag's exclamation echoed the shared astonishment, her widened eyes mirroring Michael's disbelief. As Griffey's jaws unhinged like that of a python, a wave of horrified realization crashed over them. "What are you doing?" "No. Don't!" Poppy's desperate screams tore through the air, but their frantic pleas proved futile. In a nightmarish tableau, the old woman's rotten teeth clamped down with a sickening crunch, obliterating bones and resistance alike. Michael winced at the grisly sounds that followed, the repulsive symphony of bones being shattered and devoured. The sight, even in the dim light of the room, was undeniably grotesque, a grotesque display that seared itself into Michael's memory. Michael's revulsion was palpable as he witnessed the gruesome spectacle unfold before him. He couldn't help but voice his thoughts, his tone a mix of horror and disgust. "That's beyond disgusting." The old woman's laughter erupted, a macabre sound that seemed to dance on the edge of madness. "Oh, my dear boy, you've only just glimpsed the beginning of horror," she retorted, her tone a chilling melody of mirth and malice. Her eyes bore into his, their depths swirling with a sadistic amusement. "And as for your dear Carmela," she continued, a sinister grin twisting her already grotesque features, "she too shall meet the same fate. A fate she cannot escape." Her words dripped with a wicked satisfaction, each syllable laden with a cruel certainty. "Her essence will blend into a savory soup, an offering to my insatiable hunger," the old woman declared. "Ah, the taste of innocent flesh," she mused, a morbid nostalgia tainting her tone. "The most potent drug in all realms, young man. It surpasses any sustenance, offering a feast for both body and soul." Chapter 1080 Deaths of Michael's worshippers. The old woman's twisted amusement seemed to fuel her power. With a wave of her clawed hand, she conjured a spell that crackled with dark energy. The air itself seemed to twist and writhe as the spell materialized, a sinister vortex of shadows that swirled around her fingers before being unleashed. As the spell surged forth, it morphed into an ethereal entity, its form an amalgamation of writhing tendrils that dripped with malevolence. The room trembled as the spell wove its tendrils into the very fabric of reality, its ominous aura casting the surroundings into an eerie gloom. Amidst this chaos, the old woman's voice cut through the room. "I wonder, young man, how 3 promising young men such as yourselves would taste," she taunted, her words dripping with a blend of sadistic curiosity and hunger. With a wicked grin, she unleashed the spell's concentrated malevolence, a searing torrent of energy hurtling towards Michael. But Michael was prepared. In a swift motion, he raised his arm as the black shield retracted from his forearm. The shield absorbed the oncoming spell with a sickening sizzle, the dark tendrils intertwining and dissipating into nothingness upon impact. The old woman's laughter echoed, amusement dancing in her hollow eyes. "Impressive," she purred, her voice tinged with an unsettling admiration. "Seems you're not as defenseless as your friends. A pity, though. I do so enjoy the spectacle of watching my prey squirm." As the remnants of the dissipating spell faded away, Michael's laughter echoed through the room. Griffey, taken aback by his reaction, posed a question that dripped with malicious curiosity. "My preys normally go insane, but not this soon. What's so funny, young prey?" Michael's grin remained unwavering as he met her gaze. "Have you not heard that you shouldn't eat everything you pick from the ground?" he retorted. A puzzled frown creased Griffey's forehead, and a soft chuckle emerged from Iag, who perched atop Michael's shoulder. Michael continued, his voice a casual, dark amusement. "You never know what it would do to your stomach." With a snap of his fingers, the room was engulfed in a burst of dark green mist. Griffey's form disintegrated, her once menacing presence vanishing in an instant. Veer and Hal, no longer pinned by the tendrils, dropped to the ground, their expressions a mix of disbelief and shock. "What just happened?" Veer's voice quivered as he spoke, his fear still palpable. The silence was broken by Michael's nonchalant reply. "Simple chemistry." His calculated move became clear. Poppy's final injection had contained the blood tonic. As Griffey devoured him, the unsuspecting monster ingested a ticking time bomb, a bomb that Michael had detonated with a mere snap of his fingers. As Griffey's demise settled, Hal and Veer turned their focus to their cousin's whereabouts. Their frantic search led them to overturn furniture and rummage through the house in their desperate quest to find Carmela. "She's not hiding under a sofa, Hal," Veer remarked, his gaze shifting towards Michael. He recognized that Michael's unique skills might hold the key to locating Carmela. "She was teleported. I have a few ways to find Dash," Michael began to explain before he was interrupted by an unsettling realization. The system, which had always given him notifications for successful eliminations, had remained silent. His brows furrowed as he processed this unusual occurrence. "What?" Hal and Veer exchanged expectant glances, eager for Michael's explanation. "The 2 of you should leave this place as soon as you can." Michael's tone was grave, carrying a weight of urgency. Confusion and frustration mingled in Hal's voice as he protested. "But you killed her. Somehow." "I don't know how, but you did," Veer added. Leave this place. Michael's voice, now somber, broke through the chaos, halting their frantic efforts. Why would we leave? We can't go without Carmela. Hall's retort was fueled by his concern for his cousin. Veer echoed the sentiment, his determination unyielding. We won't leave without her. However, Michael was not in the mood to argue. Without further explanation, he marched to the door and with a powerful kick, splintered the wooden barrier. His gaze fell upon the once vibrant valley, now replaced by a mist-shrouded, foul-smelling swamp. The foul swamp stretched in every direction, an expanse of murky waters and twisted trees that seemed to writhe in the mist. The air hung heavy with the stench of decay, and a damp chill settled into their bones. The atmosphere was oppressive, thick with an eerie silence broken only by the occasional croak of unseen creatures. Veer's voice quivered with a mix of dread and disbelief as he glanced around. This is the misty swamps, he murmured, his words tinged with a sense of recognition that mirrored the shock in his eyes. Michael's voice cut through the tension, his tone laced with an undercurrent of authority. The illusion that Griffey cast over this realm has dissipated. We're truly in the misty swamps now. As if on cue, the veil of deception that had obscured their surroundings was lifted, revealing the grim reality that now enveloped them. The twisted trees and stagnant waters stretched out before them, a testament to the treacherous nature of this realm. Take them outside the swamp, Michael's command rang out as he turned to Vidora, a decisive tone coloring his words. Veer and Hal exchanged stunned glances, their surprise evident as Michael continued to issue instructions. If you find yourselves in danger, use your teleportation, Michael added, his gaze shifting to Kane. In a swift motion, he seized Vidora and handed her over to Veer. I'll return with your cousin. Now go, time is running short, Michael urged, giving them a firm push towards the swamp's edge. Without further delay, he turned away and re-entered the house, his determination unyielding. Before Veer and Hal could formulate a response, the world around them shifted. Michael's decisive actions triggered a series of events. A stomp on the floor, a resonant crash, and the ceiling above the entrance collapsing in on itself. Their path back was sealed off, and they were now separated from the mysterious protector who had plunged into the depths of the house. Inside the house once more, Michael's attention refocused on the task at hand. He made his way to the spot where Griffey exploded, his senses attuned to the lingering remnants of her presence. Where are you hiding? Michael's question carried a mixture of determination and curiosity, the voice of a predator seeking out its prey. As the god of darkness, his heightened senses allowed him to perceive the faint traces of Griffey's energy still lingering in the air. With a swift motion, Michael activated the X-ray eyes, granting himself enhanced vision. His gaze swept over the surroundings, revealing hidden details. To his surprise, his sight revealed a concealed cave that led deeper into the house. No time to search for hidden mechanisms, Michael muttered to himself, his tone laced with a mix of wry amusement. He wasted no time, channeling his immense strength into a single kick that shattered the sturdy wall as if it were mere eggshell. The opening of the cave was exposed, and a gust of air rushed forth, carrying with it the putrid scent of death and decay. Pressing his chest, Michael activated his dark armor. The black armor unfurled, a living metal that encased him from head to toe, his figure now concealed within its inky embrace. The skull on his chest erupted in eerie brilliance, twin beams of light emanating from the hollow eye sockets. These luminous guides cast an ethereal glow, cutting through the cavern's darkness as they illuminated his path. The cave's interior embraced Michael with an all-encompassing darkness, broken only by the faint illumination of eerie green moths that fluttered like ethereal spirits. Luminous mushrooms sprouted from the damp earth, casting an otherworldly glow that added to the surreal ambience. As he ventured deeper, the cave seemed to carry the weight of its own history. Faint echoes reverberated in the air, haunting whispers, the ghostly remnants of voices long silenced. Please, I am begging you for mercy. Why? Why are you doing this? Please, no more. I can't take it. The cave's depths were a repository of anguish, a chilling tapestry of suffering woven by the hands of a sinister entity. The haunting cries that reverberated within the cave fell on deaf ears as Michael remained resolute. Unperturbed by the eerie echoes, he swiftly took action, activating the Antidote Protection Device, APD, to inoculate himself against the hallucinogenic influences that might linger in the air. His swift injection fortified his mind against the insidious effects that the cave's atmosphere might have wrought. As he ventured further into the depths of the cavern, its confines began to expand, revealing a grim tableau. A mound of bones, skulls, and skeletons lay exposed, a macabre testament to the lives that had met their end within this cursed domain. Then, a voice sliced through the silence, chilling in its sinister tone. "You are the first human to step into my domain willingly," the voice echoed, resonating through the chamber. Laughter, dripping with malice, followed the voice's initial proclamation. "An ancient being like me possesses a multitude of forms and powers, young prey," Griffey's voice continued, its presence casting an ominous pall over the exchange. "Why not reveal yourself and face me directly, like a true monster?" Michael inquired, his tone steady as he ventured deeper into the heart of the cave. "Why would I hasten this exhilarating dance between us? It has been centuries since I've experienced something quite like this," Griffey's chuckle echoed, carrying the undertones of wicked delight. Michael, however, was not content to merely play the role of the hunted. "I heard you constructed your home over the temple of the god of darkness. Care to share your motivations for that, bad girl?" he taunted, his words dripping with a sinister edge. "The god of darkness? The false god. Surely you don't count yourself among his devotees?" Griffey's response was laced with a sardonic sneer. "False god, you say?" "I beg to differ," Michael retorted with an air of quiet confidence, his voice taking on a low, drawling quality that mirrored Griffey's own. Settling himself upon the bone-strewn mound, he adopted a regal posture, his intent to draw out the secrets that Griffey guarded so closely. However, he wasn't ready to unveil his identity as the god of darkness to Griffey just yet. Instead, he chose to play the role he had set for himself, engaging in this intricate dance of deception and intrigue. "I have enjoyed killing his worshippers. As a matter of fact, you are sitting on top of some," Griffey coldly laughed, enjoying her exchange with Michael. Chapter 1081, Meeting the Executioner of the Pantheon amidst the shadows. Griffey's voice took on a haunting cadence, weaving a bone-chilling tale that resonated with the darkness of her very being. "There was an incident," she began, her tone dripping with a cruel reminiscence that sent shivers down the spine. "A young man, curious and enamored by the whispers of the temple of the god of darkness. The villagers, fearing he might embrace the worship of that forbidden god, turned to me." A chuckle, laden with wicked satisfaction, escaped her lips. "They believed I held the power to save him from that fate. So they brought him to my dwelling, pleading for his life." Her words held an eerie calmness as she continued her tale. "I granted his request, you see. I kept him alive, savoring his flesh bit by bit. His screams, oh, they became my symphony, each note more satisfying than the last." A sense of morbid fascination danced within her voice as she recalled the grim event. "He cried out to every god imaginable, including the one he was warned against, the god of darkness. His pleas fell on deaf ears, as I feasted upon his agony." Griffey's words dripped with a twisted amusement as she revealed the culmination of her malevolence. "When I had consumed every bit of his being, only his bones remained. I spat them out and cast them aside. Then I spun my tale, one of his departure from the village in search of greater knowledge." Her voice was mocking as she recounted the deception she had woven. "The villagers believed my lies, so willing to overlook their own fears and suspicions. Fools, each and every one of them, for they chose to be deceived." Seated amidst the chilling mound of bones, Michael listened to Griffey's tale with a composed demeanor, his dark armor enveloping him like a shroud of enigma. As her sinister narrative reached its conclusion, he allowed a moment of silence to linger before his own voice cut through the darkness. "Your story reminds me of an ancient tale," he began, his tone measured and deliberate. "There was once an arrogant hunter, confident in his prowess. He had hunted and claimed victory over countless weak prey, fueling his arrogance. Yet, his arrogance led him to believe he could conquer the ultimate prey, a predator shrouded in darkness and myth." A subtle pause carried a weight of anticipation before he continued. Little did the hunter know that he had walked into the predator's domain. This cunning predator, appearing as a seemingly weak prey, allowed the hunter to close in. Just as the hunter believed he was in control, the predator's true nature revealed itself. Michael's words held a quiet intensity, mirroring the ominous atmosphere of the cave. The predator, masquerading as the very prey the hunter sought, cunningly reversed the roles. With each calculated move, the predator turned the tables, transforming the hunter into the hunted. He let the implications of his story hang in the air, a mirror to the tale Griffey had spun. In the end, the hunter's arrogance was his downfall, his belief in his own invincibility shattered by the reality of his vulnerability. The predator relished in this twist of fate, for the true power lay not in sheer strength but in the art of deception and manipulation. Griffey's laughter echoed through the cavern, a macabre symphony of darkness. "Ah, a tale of shifting roles and hidden intentions," she mused in response to Michael's story. "But who, I wonder, is the true predator, and who is the unsuspecting prey in this dance between us?" Michael's response was delivered with unwavering calmness. "The roles will become clear in due time," he stated, his words carrying a hint of enigmatic assurance. As the air trembled with an undercurrent of anticipation, the shadows of the cave seemed to deepen, yielding to the emergence of a figure from the darkness. Michael frowned as a familiar silhouette stepped into view. It was Carmela, yet her presence was different, tinged with an unsettling aura. Carmela's laughter held an eerie edge. It was a haunting sound as a stark realization dawned upon him. Griffey had seized control of Carmela's body. As the truth settled in, Carmela's features contorted, the very embodiment of innocence distorted by malevolent possession. He locked eyes with the twisted gaze of Griffey, now housed within the vessel of Carmela. "Surprised to see me, young prey?" Carmela's voice dripped with dark amusement, a sinister mockery of Griffey. A sardonic smile danced upon her lips as the tension in the cavern escalated. "You see, I've taken quite a liking to this young woman's body. Such potential, such vulnerability. The perfect canvas for my art." Griffey's taunts laced each word she spoke, a challenge that lingered in the air like a poison. "What will you do, I wonder? Will you harm this delicate vessel, or will you hesitate, torn between your duty and your emotions?" A ripple of laughter spilled from Michael's lips, a calculated response that halted Carmela's steps, freezing her possessed form in place. "Duty and emotions? Ha ha ha," he chuckled, his voice carrying an air of confident mockery that echoed through the cavern. "Why in the world did you assume I would be torn between duty and emotions? I am an angel of death, not an angel of mercy," Michael declared, testing the waters by claiming his identity as an angel. The revelation of his identity as an angel was a calculated gamble, a move to unsettle the creature that now inhabited Carmela's form. He was acutely aware that ancient monsters like Griffey often leaned on their raw power, blinded by arrogance that dulled their strategic thinking. This vulnerability was his advantage, a chink in her armor that he aimed to exploit. In other words, they had relied on brute force for so long that their intellect had waned over time. "An angel, you say?" Carmela's voice, now a vessel for Griffey's presence, carried a tinge of mocking amusement. "In this godless realm, not even your god of death can breach my dominion, let alone grant you his powers." A serene smile tugged at Michael's lips, hidden beneath the facade. He breathed a silent sigh of relief, his facade bearing the weight of his true thoughts. "So you're telling me that even my almighty god can't sense my presence?" Michael feigned anger, casting doubt on the claim. "Indeed, not even the Pantheon can." "Now let's see who is the predator and prey." Carmela's form, now twisted by Griffey's possession, emitted a sinister chuckle. Unbeknownst to Michael, Griffey's ethereal fusion realm cultivation stage remained beyond his perception. Yet, his divine nature as a god surpassed her in strength. With her confirmation that the Pantheon's reach did not extend into her domain, Michael found himself unshackled, free to wield his powers without restraint. To refresh your memories equals Initiate Realm, Chi Awakening Realm, Spiritual Embryo Realm, Elemental Attunement Realm, Celestial Resonance Realm, Soul Ignition Realm, Ethereal Fusion Realm, Void Transcendence Realm, and Divine Ascendancy Realm. "Ah, the angel thinks he can stand against me," Griffey's voice, now emanating from Carmela's form, dripped with malicious glee. "Your god's protection won't save you here." Before Griffey's incredulous words could fully register, Michael materialized behind her using shadow teleportation. Her shock was palpable as his hand closed around Carmela's face, fingers glowing with a dark aura as he activated his Soul Devourer skill. A guttural roar escaped Griffey's lips as Michael initiated the extraction, his grasp tugging at Griffey's soul ensnared within Carmela's body. "This power. No angel is capable of this feat." Griffey's voice trembled with disbelief, yet Michael persisted in pulling her soul free. Unexpectedly, Carmela fought back with a burst of strength, her fingers slashing across Michael's face. Deep gashes marred his skin, but they quickly sealed as the advanced regeneration potion surged through his veins. Griffey seized the opportunity to break free, distancing herself from Michael. Perched on an elevated rock formation, she looked down upon him with a mixture of curiosity and uncertainty. "Let me see what kind of angel you are." Griffey's voice was laced with intrigue as she tasted the blood staining her fingers from the scratch she had inflicted. Carmela's possessed eyes widened as the essence of Michael's blood touched her senses. An unfamiliar sensation coursed through her, a hint of fear mingling with her previous arrogance. "You are no angel. You are a god." Griffey's words trembled with realization, the shock and fear palpable in her tone. With a calculated amusement, Michael savored the shift in power dynamics. "Now you understand who's the prey and who's the predator." In an instant, he employed shadow teleportation once more, this time materializing behind Carmela. Draven, his ally within the body, took control, restraining her as Michael assumed his position atop her. "This body isn't yours to command." Michael's voice dripped with authority as he focused on Griffey's soul within Carmela's body. The power of his soul-eating abilities was honed on extracting Griffey's presence from Carmela's vessel. "What kind of god dares to enter my domain?" Griffey's voice thundered with rage, her resistance fierce as Michael unleashed the full extent of his powers. Under the weight of his might, Griffey's ethereal form struggled against the inevitable, unable to withstand the force bearing down upon her within Carmela. "You'll find out soon enough," Michael growled, his determination unwavering as he slowly extracted Griffey's essence from its host. Gradually, his hand closed around an ethereal white mist, pulling it from Carmela's form. "Get out!" With a final resounding roar, Michael wrenched Griffey's soul free from Carmela's grasp. As he held the captured essence in his hand, a chilling smirk crept onto his lips. The moment was ripe for Michael to absorb Griffey's malevolent soul, to end her reign of terror. His mouth parted, prepared to consume her essence and bring about her demise. But fate had other plans. The very ceiling above him erupted into a shower of debris and chaos, the explosion shaking the cave violently. Beneath them, the ground fractured ominously, threatening to swallow Carmela whole. Reacting swiftly, Michael seized her hand, clutched Griffey's soul in the other, and summoned his metallic wings. With a powerful flap, he propelled them out of the collapsing cavern. Dark flames enveloped his wings, disintegrating the falling rocks before they could harm Carmela or impede their escape. "I won't die so easily," Griffey's voice echoed from within the trapped soul, defiant even in her dire circumstances. Emerging from the cave, Michael touched down on solid ground before teleporting himself and Carmela to a safer location within the swamp. "You're wrong," Michael retorted, his determination renewed as he prepared to absorb the captive essence. However, in an unexpected turn, a surge of energy struck him from behind despite his responsive shield. The impact catapulted him through the air, crashing through trees and landing in the murky swamp waters. With a growl of frustration, Michael twisted to face his assailant. Griffey's essence had slipped from his grasp. With a growl of frustration, Michael twisted to face his assailant. Griffey's essence had slipped from his grasp. "You're coming with me to the Pantheon, rogue god," a commanding voice boomed, announcing the approach of a powerful entity. Chapter 1082 Elemental Attunement Realm. Michael's growl reverberated through the swamp as he rose to his feet, seething with frustration at the abrupt escape of Griffey. His anger, however, was swiftly redirected as he faced the arrival of the angel. The confidence radiating from the angel told Michael that he was facing an opponent of great power, an opponent who showed no fear even in the face of a god. "Resist all you want, rogue god," the angel's voice resonated across the swamp. Its tone alone conveyed the angel's immense power. "You want escape through teleportation," the angel declared, producing a glowing red rune-engraved metal plate. The plate split into fragments that dispersed in every direction around Michael. Gradually, the space around him thickened, stifling his ability to employ shadow teleportation. "How did you find me?" Michael inquired, despite being aware that his use of power had alerted the Pantheon to his presence. An executioner from their ranks had tracked him down. "You're neither the first nor the last rogue god I'll hunt," the angel proclaimed with a commanding air. With little hesitation, Michael lunged at the angel, unleashing a barrage of rapid punches. The angel, however, didn't raise a hand to deflect the blows. Instead, he absorbed the onslaught, his body almost inviting Michael's assault. A final kick propelled the angel back, sending him crashing into the swamp's watery embrace. Yet, the angel swiftly rose to his feet. A mere level 2 god, how disappointing, the angel sneered, astonishing Michael with his assessment. Enduring Michael's blows had allowed the angel to gauge his divine level. In an instant, the angel's wrist moved, revealing a small glass container containing a radiant sliver of energy. The energy emanating from the container was palpable. Michael surged toward the angel, recognizing the angel's intention to absorb the sliver of grace and amplify his abilities. However, as he charged forward, 2 massive hands emerged from the watery depths, seizing his legs. Michael glanced down to see imposing metallic hands locking onto his limbs. He strained to free himself, beating his metal wings to ascend into the air. Yet, he felt as though he were being drawn by mountains, their strength far surpassing even a god's immense might. "You will accompany me to the Pantheon, whether you like it or not," the angel declared before ingesting the gray sliver. The moment the energy entered the angel's mouth, a radiant glow enveloped him, catching Michael's attention. Warning! The angel has reached God level 5. The system recommends the host to escape. Use a teleportation scroll. Michael shouted within his head. Teleportation is unavailable. The host lacks the required points to break the teleportation lock. The system's response offered no aid to Michael. Reacting quickly, he unsheathed his dark swords and invoked the power of death. The surroundings plunged into absolute darkness. Nonetheless, the angel's radiance outshone the darkness, the disparity between a level 2 god and a level 5 god unbridgeable. God of darkness, I've been anticipating your arrival in this realm, the angel spoke, his voice devoid of emotion. The 2 metal hands that had ensnared Michael's legs gradually emerged from the swamp, unveiling themselves as towering metal golems. These constructs stood nearly 10 feet tall, their bodies constructed from a dark, ancient metal that seemed impervious to wear. Their eyes glowed with a malevolent red light, and their massive fists clenched, ready for combat. These golems have brought down so many rogue gods. And you will not be an exception, the angel said. Without hesitation, Michael engaged the golems, launching his attacks in a desperate bid to break free. Black lightning erupted from his hands, streaking toward the golems, but the bolts seemed to be absorbed by their metallic bodies. He then unleashed dark beams, hoping to pierce through their defenses, but the golems held firm. Even when he summoned dark flames that should have consumed everything in their path, the flames merely danced upon the golem's surfaces without inflicting damage. The angel, his power amplified by the grace, exerted control over the golems. With calculated precision, they advanced on Michael from both sides, their heavy footsteps sending tremors through the swamp. Each blow they struck was like the collision of mountains, and Michael's attempts to fend them off were growing increasingly futile. The quest, The Mystery of the Misty Swamps, is completed. The host has received 1,000,000 badass points. As Michael continued to battle the relentless golems and the empowered angel, the sudden notification from the system brought a glimmer of hope amidst the chaos. The prospect of earning a significant number of badass points through a completed quest was a welcome surprise. Amid the intense clashes and exchanges of power, Michael managed to steal a quick glance at the spot where he had left Carmela. To his relief, she was nowhere to be seen, and he deduced that she had likely found safety with their cousin outside the treacherous swamp. With no physical body, Griffey seemed to have momentarily halted her attacks and disappeared. With his focus back on the battle, Michael exerted his strength, causing the golem's hands to crack and buckle under his power. "If you surrender and come with me to the Pantheon, I will not hurt you," the angel coldly said. His grip on the golems tightened as he listened to the angel's cold offer. Surrender was not an option for Michael. His determination to survive and find a way out burned within him. In the midst of this life-or-death struggle, Michael turned to the system for aid, seeking a solution to escape the dire predicament. "System, take a loan and get me out of here," he growled silently within his mind, urgency coating his thoughts. The system can take a loan of 10,000,000 points and add it to the existing 11,000,000 badass points to find a solution. However, the host must survive at least 5 more minutes in this battle for the system to break the teleportation barrier. Warning! The host has no way of earning 25,000,000 points in this realm in a short amount of time. The system's notifications came rapidly, outlining the options and challenges before him. "Do it!" Michael's voice boomed in his thoughts, his determination unwavering as he gave the command to the system. Being a god doesn't mean you're at the top of the food chain in this world. The angel taunted as the golems tightened their grip on Michael's hands, rendering him immobile. You lack worshippers, angels, and any real claim in this realm, the angel continued to approach Michael, his hand producing glimmering golden shackles. Struggling against the unyielding hold of the golems, Michael conjured his dark flames in an attempt to burn through the metallic restraints. However, even the intense heat of the primordial flames failed to weaken the resilience of the metal used in the construction of the golems and shackles. And you fail to grasp the extent of an angel's power, the angel asserted, raising his hands to emphasize his words. His cultivation in the soul ignition realm not only heightened his soul energy, but it also granted him mastery over a specific element. By the time a practitioner reached level 4, the elemental attunement realm, they had to choose an elemental affinity to specialize in. This angel had chosen metal, granting him absolute control over his metallic constructs, including the wings attached to Michael's armor. No one stands above or beyond the pantheon, the angel declared, his fist clenching. With a swift motion, Michael felt his armor constricting, the once sturdy metal wings torn away from his back under the angel's unseen manipulation. Enduring the agony of his armor adapting to the changes, Michael utilized his remaining strength to levitate above the ground. The golems responded with defiant roars, yet the angel's punch struck with devastating force, causing Michael's armor to shatter. Exposed and vulnerable, he gritted his teeth against the pain while confronting the undeniable power of the angel. Level 2 gods cannot prevail against level 5 gods, the angel asserted. With the temporary boost from absorbing the level 5 god's sliver of grace, he effortlessly overpowered Michael within a matter of seconds. In the midst of seemingly insurmountable odds, a peculiar whistling sound pierced the air. The angel abruptly halted, his attention drawn to the source of the noise. Out of nowhere, a volley of fireballs struck the angel squarely in the chest, propelling him backwards through the air. The impact of the powerful energy blast shattered the grip of the two golems holding Michael captive, causing them to crumble. As the golems struggled to regain their footing with indignant roars, a hand landed on Michael's shoulder. Looking up, he saw a tall, dark-haired female orc standing beside him. Her eyes held a mixture of shock, surprise, and even a glimmer of joy as she assisted him to his feet. "Quick, we haven't got much time," she urgently urged Michael, her voice betraying a sense of urgency. He found himself amazed by the sight of a long cannon in her hands, its design almost reminiscent of a firearm. Without hesitation, she aimed it at the golems and pulled the trigger, sending another formidable burst of energy toward them. While the golems endured the onslaught, the sheer force of the impact submerged them into the swamp's murky waters. "Follow me," the orc instructed, prompting Michael to move swiftly. He had little choice but to trail after her, leaving the chaotic scene behind as they raced away from danger. "Who are you?" Michael panted as he sprinted alongside the orc. "No time for explanations. Now!" The orc's voice resounded urgently. Abruptly, Michael's gaze caught sight of Vidora sprawled on the ground, just inches away from the luminous metal plate that the angel had hurled at the beginning of their confrontation. Reacting swiftly, Cain opened his mouth and a swirling vortex materialized before Michael and the orc. Without hesitation, Michael seized Vidora from the ground and leapt into the portal's embrace. Yet, just before he vanished into the portal, he glanced back and caught sight of the angel. "I'll track you down," the angel's declaration reverberated through the swamp. Ignoring the warning, Michael and the orc vanished into the portal's depths, leaving the angel behind. Chapter 1083. Reuniting with an old buddy. The abrupt transition plunged Michael into a dimly lit room, a stark contrast to the swamp. The chamber was illuminated by an eerie red glow, its walls adorned with mirrors and screens of various sizes. It took a few moments for Michael to regain his composure, his heart still racing from the chaotic events in the swamp. Turning towards the orc beside him, Michael asked, "Who are you?" The orc slowly turned around, her body trembling slightly. She met Michael's gaze, her eyes a mixture of fear, relief, and uncertainty. "Did you decode the message in Gaia's temple?" Her voice quivered as she spoke. Michael nodded. "Yes, it was Morse code. But how did you know about Morse code?" The orc stumbled over her own feet, her nervousness palpable. Gathering her courage, she asked, "Do you know about Earth?" The question caught Michael off guard, his surprise evident in his widened eyes. "Earth? How do you know about Earth?" A mix of anxiety and curiosity danced in the orc's eyes. You really do know about it. Michael's expression turned serious, his guard rising. Who are you? He demanded once more, his voice firm. Nervously, the orc hesitated before finally blurting out. Are you Ghost? The world's #1 hitman, Ghost? Michael was taken aback by the unexpected question. His surprise was evident as he stared at the orc before him, struggling to comprehend the words he had just heard. Are you from Earth too? Iag's voice broke the tension in the room, as Vidora's curiosity found a voice. The sudden appearance of the orc had raised numerous questions, but understanding how she knew about Earth was their current priority. Among those in Sky Hall, only Michael, Gaia, and now Vidora were privy to his earthly origins and his history as a hitman. You're Ghost. I can't believe it, the orc exclaimed, collapsing into a nearby chair. Her breathing became frantic, resembling an asthma attack. I think she's in trouble, Saba noted, watching the orc's labored breathing. The orc gestured toward a small dish containing gray powder. Take that. Michael carefully picked up the dish and handed it to the orc. She inhaled the powder deeply, her breathing slowly stabilizing. Ghost, it's really you. Damn. The orc muttered, her eyes a mixture of shock, fear, and elation. Are you? Michael began to piece things together, but before he could utter his guess, the orc revealed her true identity. Ghost. It's me, Pink, the orc confessed, causing Michael's heart to skip a beat. He struggled to believe the revelation. Pink. Michael whispered, his shock palpable. Pink had been his partner in countless assassinations on Earth, providing technical support and navigation while he operated in the field. The notion that Pink had also transmigrated to this new world was beyond comprehension. I can't believe it. I'm actually seeing Ghost. Pink stammered nervously, her behavior at odds with what would be expected of an orc. 37 operations, you and I together. All successful. We were the best pair in the whole world. Pink continued, her expression a mix of delight and astonishment. Michael couldn't doubt Pink's words. Her mention of the exact number of operations was undeniable proof. It's like a mixture of both a good and bad dream. Jesus Christ, Pink muttered, her nervousness evident as she still trembled from the shock of their unexpected reunion. Overwhelmed by emotion, the orc, now revealed as Pink, rushed towards Michael and enveloped him in a tight hug. Michael, taken aback for a moment, hesitated before awkwardly patting Pink's back a few times, not entirely sure how to respond. Hey, calm down, he finally managed to say, gently trying to loosen her grip. Let's sit down and catch up. There's a lot I need to know. Reluctantly, Pink released Michael and took a seat, her eyes still wide with disbelief and excitement. As they settled, Michael prompted her to recount what had happened since their last mission together. Well, you remember that target, right? The one you took down with that incredible sniper shot? Pink began, her voice carrying a mixture of nostalgia and awe. As soon as you made that kill, this bright light surrounded me. Next thing I know, I'm waking up in this body. Michael leaned in, intrigued. What happened to the original occupant of the body? Pink's expression turned somber. She died. Apparently some flu or something. Then I was there. In this orc's body. She paused, as if gathering her thoughts before continuing. I didn't realize what was happening at first, but after a while, I started to lose control. My thoughts were a mess, and I was basically going mad. She let out a bitter laugh. The orcs didn't take too kindly to that. They locked me away in isolation for 6 months. I'm sorry to hear that, Michael interjected sympathetically. Pink nodded and continued, well, after that crazy phase, I guess you could say I became a bit of a nerd. I started reading everything I could get my hands on. Eventually, I spent a whole year in the Great Library of Durin. That sounds like quite the transformation, Michael remarked, impressed by her dedication. It was in that library that I came across texts mentioning the god of darkness, referred to as Ghost among the mortals, Pink explained. Something about that name struck a chord with me, and I realized it was you. So, I delved into every piece of information I could find about you, trying to figure out if you really were the same ghost I used to work with. Michael's face carried a mix of surprise and curiosity. The idea that his earthly alias had lingered on in this world was astonishing to him. He leaned forward, encouraging her to continue with his intense interest. The twists and turns of their conversation were leaving him both amazed and bewildered. Pink leaned forward, her eyes shining with a mix of enthusiasm and urgency. The Great Library of Durin has a secret, forbidden section. I knew there was something more to discover, so I managed to sneak into that restricted area. Anything that mentioned gods I read. And that's when I found something fascinating. Michael's curiosity grew as Pink's story unfolded. What did you find? Her voice held a sense of triumph as she continued. I discovered that the goddess of monsters, Gaia, is actually the wife of the god of darkness. But that wasn't all. Digging deeper, I found records suggesting that the god of darkness had actually lived in this world around 5,000 years ago. Pink nodded, her eyes shining with determination. And that's where things get tricky. Some of the elder orcs claim the god of darkness was banished from this realm, while others say he just disappeared. But I couldn't believe that. So, I started searching for his worshippers, and through one of them, I got this. Pink reached into a pocket and pulled out a small, spider-like device. God of Darkness himself. Michael couldn't help but be surprised by Pink's intellect and spider, Vidora exclaimed, recognizing the device. Pink nodded and then pointed at the device. This thing definitely has circuits and wiring from Earth, on top of these strange runes. The worshipper who gave me this claimed that it was built by the god of darkness himself. Michael couldn't help but be surprised by Pink's intellect and resourcefulness. Her ability to piece together information from ancient texts, and her use of technology from Earth to connect the dots impressed him. Pink's voice held a mixture of confusion and curiosity as she asked, "But hey, raise my question. If this device was built 5,000 years ago and the god of darkness, which is you, lived in the realm of gods 5,000 years ago, are you 5,000 years old? How does that work?" Michael leaned back in his chair, considering the complexity of the situation. "Well, just like you, I woke up in this body 3 years ago. The concept of time is a bit convoluted when it comes to the realm of gods. The short version is that we're in a time reset. 5,000 years ago, I lived and ended up triggering a reset of the entire universe, except for the realm of gods. So, by resetting, I started my life on Earth and ended up in the mortal realm 3 years ago, essentially reliving the journey that had already happened." Pink nodded, her brow furrowed as she tried to grasp the concept. "I think I get it, kind of." "Don't worry, it's a lot to wrap your head around," Michael reassured her. "Just focus on the present and what's to come." Ayag chimed in, her curiosity evident. "Still, I can't believe how you transformed from a nerdy little orc to a cannon-wielding badass." Pink chuckled, her cheeks slightly flushed. "These schematics." She rifled through the papers strewn across the table and handed a few over to Michael. As he looked at the blueprints, he recognized his own handwriting and knew they were his designs from his time as the Dark Lord. "These are the schematics I got from one of your temples. I did my best to build them based on the information I had. Books and schematics can only teach you so much," Pink explained, her tone a mixture of pride and humility. Curious about her foreknowledge of the recent events, Michael asked, "So, how did you know I would be in the Misty Swamps? How did you know about Griffey?" Pink shrugged. "Griffey? No idea. I asked you to come to the Misty Swamps because that's where your temple is." Michael frowned, still puzzled. "That doesn't explain how you came prepared to deal with the angel." Pink's eyes twinkled mischievously as she motioned to the blueprints. "The answer is in these schematics." Michael's gaze fell on a peculiar device that seemed to have the ability to sense the energy of a god. "I managed to acquire a sliver of grace left by your previous self, although acquire might be a generous term. I kind of stole it from someone powerful," Pink admitted with a sheepish grin. "I used that grace to calibrate the device, making it alert me if it sensed a similar energy. So, imagine my surprise when it finally went off, screaming." She chuckled in relief and pointed to a copper-plated circular device in the corner of the room. "But living in this world for 3 years taught me how the Pantheon would react if they sensed your presence. So, I prepared for this mission just like when we were on Earth. I built this cannon using your schematics and left a note in Gaia's temple. So, when the rune I left in the Misty Swamps alerted me, I came as fast as I could. I hoped for a peaceful meeting, but you were fighting an executioner. You should be glad I didn't freeze on the spot when I saw him." "I'm glad you came," Michael said, a relieved smile crossing his lips. Reuniting with his old partner felt like a dream come true. He then decided to lighten the mood with a seemingly normal question, asking, "So back on Earth, you were a girl?" Pink laughed and nodded. "Yep. But you're exactly as I imagined, minus a three-headed snake on your back, she teased. Sorry to interrupt the reunion, but what happened back there, Ghost? Who was that angel who gave you a beating? We've been facing a lot of losses lately. Ayag's frustration and concern were evident in her tone. Pink's excitement bubbled over as she spoke. An executioner of the Pantheon. He's one of the elite angels sent to deal with rogue gods. But don't worry, Ghost, we're back in action. Just like the old times. Damn, I missed this work so much. The thrill, the preparation for the assassination, the anticipation. I missed it all. Ayag rolled her eyes at Pink's enthusiasm. Slow down, Orc. Our targets aren't your typical run-of-the-mill humans anymore. We're dealing with god problems now. Pink's expression shifted as she revealed a mischievous, proud smile. I might have a way to kill the gods. Chapter 1084, A Solution for Michael's Problem. When Pink mentioned the possibility of having a way to kill the gods, Michael was taken aback. On Earth, Pink had been an exceptionally skilled helper, handling research and aiding him in planning assassinations to perfection. The prospect of reuniting with her and strategizing on this grand scale filled Michael with thrilling excitement. What do you mean? Michael inquired eagerly. Pink began to explain, the Library of Durin is one of the oldest libraries in this world. The orcs cherish it even more than their own lives. Before I left the kingdom, I heard that the orcs were dead set on acquiring a new book for their collection. They were taking it incredibly seriously, even delving into their coffers. Kane voiced his skepticism, asking, do you truly believe this book might hold knowledge about killing a god? How can you be so certain? Pink remained focused on the matter at hand, not allowing the surreal sight of a talking three-headed serpent to distract her. This particular book was authored by an angel of the goddess of wisdom, Seshet. I managed to gather that it contains information that Dagon, the fallen god and ruler of hell, is actively seeking. One of the reasons Dagon was banished from the realm of gods was his relentless quest to discover a way to kill the gods. At least that's what I've gathered from the books and what the orcs shared. Saba interjected, her tone light-hearted. You seem to have acquired quite a bit of confidential information. How did you, then they should, manage that unless you're a high-ranking orc within the kingdom? With a chuckle, Pink replied. Between you and me, I'm considered quite the looker among the orcs. They tend to share more with me than they should. Michael sought clarification. The last I heard, Dagon couldn't enter this world, right? Pink nodded and continued. That's correct, but his followers are still here, hiding in the shadows, forming cults, and carrying on their usual practices. If there's anything in that book related to what their god Dagon is searching for, you can bet they'll be on the hunt for it. I was fortunate to learn about the reappearance of this book. Securing that book is indeed a priority, but first, I must find a way to evade the Pantheon's executioner, Michael sighed, a sense of urgency in his voice. Pink shared her astonishment, saying, It's truly mind-boggling, isn't it? We were humans one moment on Earth, and the next, we've become something entirely different. I've transformed into an orc, and you've become a literal god. It still feels like a dream to me. Michael reflected, life is full of mysteries. As much as I cherish our reunion, my immediate concern is finding a way to outsmart the angels and figuring out how to win against them. Even if I manage to defeat the angel I encountered, the Pantheon can and will dispatch someone even stronger. This won't end until I become powerful enough. Curious, Pink inquired, what level of god are you right now? Level 2, a demigod, Michael replied, prompting Pink to thoughtfully stroke her chin. So any angel serving a god above level 2 and beyond the second cultivation stage can absorb their god's sliver of grace and overpower you, Pink explained. Michael nodded, acknowledging the challenge. I'm aware of that. But raising my godhood level isn't easy or quick. I need alternative ways to take down the angels. Pink offered a suggestion. You could cultivate in this world and become a cultivator. This would enable you to face other cultivators and angels without exposing your godly powers, which is how the Pantheon can track you. Ayag interjected, voicing a concern. Yet, if an angel consumes a sliver of grace, they temporarily gain godly powers. In such cases, cultivation won't do shit. This won't be a cakewalk. But that's precisely what makes this challenge so intriguing, Pink stated with excitement. Right now, your focus should be on cultivation, keeping a low profile, and only employing your godly powers when absolutely necessary. While we lie low, we'll search for the book and any information on how to kill a god. Then, well, assassinate them, much like our old days on Earth. Once a god is eliminated, I assume the angels will lose their power source. Moreover, nobody has a clear understanding of what happens when a god dies. Some gods disappeared in ancient times, and others took their place. But I've read nothing about the actual act of killing a god. That's what makes the book authored by Seshet's angels so invaluable, Pink concluded with a grave tone. System, how much badass points I have? Michael asked the system. 15 million points. This is not sufficient amount of points to survive in this world. So the system recommends the host finding new ways to earn more points. Don't worry about the executioner finding you here. This is an abandoned safe house of aggro worshippers. It's equipped with all sorts of runes to prevent other angels in the pantheon from sensing the aggro worshippers who used to reside here, or at least who lived here, Pink reassured Michael. Finally, he heard some reassuring news. Curious, Iag inquired. What happened to them? Pink explained, according to the texts I used to locate this place, the aggro worshippers here tangled with some rogue cultivators who proved to be too powerful. They wiped out the aggro worshippers living here. Over time, everyone forgot about this place. But it serves as a rather shabby base of operations. It's better than nothing. Michael had an idea, saying, if the runes in this place can mask our energies, I might be able to modify this medallion. He retrieved the tree-shaped medallion given to him by Marley. Iag's tone turned deadly as he added, and let's not forget about that traitor Marley. She betrayed us and will pay with her life. Betrayed you? That sounds like a death wish, Pink remarked, fully aware of Ghost's reputation as the world's deadliest hitman. She knew better than to cross paths with him. When she heard someone had betrayed him, she assumed that person was as good as dead. If anyone could kill a god, it would undoubtedly be Ghost. Michael contemplated. She will pay for what she did. I pity Marless worshippers who died in Raynar's temple. I want to know if she truly understood what transpired. Completing this quest from the system, to kill Raynar and avenge Marless worshippers, had gained paramount importance. Once he completed the quest, the system would reveal the location of a base of operations. Pink inquired, are you a rune master by any chance? Michael shook his head, regret evident on his face. I have a subordinate in the mortal realm, but I have no means of contacting him, he sighed, missing Elidir's assistance. With Elidir by his side, Michael could combine his blacksmith skills with Elidir's rune mastery, and utilize the system's help to create something capable of concealing him from the Pantheon. Unfortunately, the system provided no aid in this matter, as he lacked the required badass points. So we need to find a talented rune master who's willing to help us. Fortunately, orcs are generally skilled in runes, and I still have a few contacts in Durin who can assist us, Pink suggested, but her voice wavered, hinting that something was troubling her. Is something wrong? Michael inquired. Iag interjected sarcastically. Well, you see, she just mentioned casually that she sneaked into a restricted area and spent time there. I'm sure the orcs just threw her a big thank you party for that. However, Michael sensed that there must be more to the story. And I accidentally killed an orc who served as an advisor to the king of Durin, Pink admitted, her voice tinged with regret. Michael could tell that even though she had spent only 3 years with the orcs, she had grown attached to them. Pink sighed, her gaze distant as she recounted her past. You see, that orc advisor, Gal, was a notorious womanizer. He used his close ties to the king to harass women throughout the kingdom. She shook her head in disgust. When I first woke up in this new body, Lonnie was the only one who befriended me. She taught me everything about this world, how to survive, and even how to adapt to this new form. Of course, I didn't reveal that I was originally a human from Earth. That would have been hard to explain. Iag leaned in, a knowing look on her serpent's face. Let me guess, this gal harassed your friend Lonnie, and you sought justice by killing him. Pink's eyes turned steely. No, he did something much worse. He killed Lonnie and treated her body like trash, she said with simmering anger. In this world, just like Earth, the poor rarely get justice when the rich are involved. I had the privilege of working with the world's best hitman, and I picked up a few traits. She hesitated for a moment before continuing. I killed Gal by pretending to accept his advances, lured him into his own bedroom, and then I stabbed him in the neck. Saba raised an eyebrow. So you got your revenge, but what happened afterward? The king's guards found me with Gal's body, and my actions led to my banishment. The orcs in my tribe managed to make the king believe I was insane, Pink explained bitterly. In the end, justice remained elusive, just like in any world. Pink sighed, her voice trembling as she recalled her past. That's another reason why I searched for you in this world, and to be honest, I prayed for a chance to reunite with you. Despite our darker professions, we made a real impact on Earth. We eliminated some truly sick people and made the world a bit safer. Plus, we got paid handsomely. This world needs someone like us even more than Earth, Pink said with a resolute determination and a glint of satisfaction at the sight of Ghost. Saba chimed in with innocent curiosity. But you won't get paid here, will you? Pink gave a sly grin. Money isn't the only form of payment, my friend. Now, we need information, and men like Gal hold the key to everything we require. We may not receive payment from a client like we did on Earth, but if we loot his body after taking him down, we'll be rich as fuck. Saba nodded in agreement as Pink went on, her tone firm. Taking down killers, assholes, and dictators does give you a satisfying feeling, Pink declared. Michael chuckled slightly and added, speaking of dictators, I did cross paths with Hunter Blade. He's in a different universe, just like us, experiencing a transmigration. Pink's reaction was immediate. She trembled, nearly toppling from her chair. Hunter? Please, tell me he's not in our universe. Oh, you did say he's not. Damn it, that guy. I genuinely pity the universe he's in right now. I hope we never cross paths with that murderous psycho, not now or ever, Pink concluded with a shiver of dread. Hunter will return in DBS, coming out of hiatus, on 12/09/2023. Chapter 1085 Journey to Become the Deadliest Assassin System. Do you have any way for me to start cultivating in this world? Michael inquired. The system responded, the host has to rebuild your body from the molecular level to accommodate mortal cultivation on top of your god being. Just the sound of it made Michael realize it was going to cost him significantly. The system requires 5 million badass points to reconstruct the body and 2 million points for the required ingredients needed to brew the special potion that would enable the host to cultivate, totaling 7 million points. So, once I've done this, I can cultivate in this world and level up by gaining experience points? Michael sought clarification. Yes. The experience points gained by the host after killing the angels and cultivators here will be used to break through to the next stages, the system confirmed. Michael felt relieved. If he could cultivate, he wouldn't need to use his godly powers in every fight, which would help him avoid detection by the Pantheon. How long will it take for you to reconstruct my body? Michael asked the system. Just a day, came the response. Great, Michael said and exited the system. He then turned to Pink, realizing he had more questions for her. It's clear we need to find the book written by Seshet's angel. But first, let's figure out what to do with you, Michael said, and Pink understood his meaning. Unlike on Earth, this world has no technology, no computers or systems for you to hack. So we need to figure out a way to utilize your talents. I had a setup in the mortal realm, but even that had no need for hacking. It just required someone to watch the camera feeds, Michael explained. I'm no rune master, but I have a way to digitize the information if you provide me with the items I need and assist me with certain things, Pink explained, making it clear she already had some ideas. Go on, Michael encouraged. First of all, I need your spider devices. They can mimic the security cameras on Earth and give us eyes in this world. And I need access to Seraphine's crystals, Pink stated. Iag, puzzled, questioned. Seraphine's crystal? What is that? Seraphine is the goddess of information. Think of her as the ultimate spy master. Nothing happens in this world without her knowing. She has spies and eyes everywhere. This world might not have computers and technology, but a large amount of information like this still requires some form of storage and containment. That's where Seraphine's crystals come into the picture. These special crystals, imbued with powerful runes, store information and allow Seraphine's angels to access the information they need, Pink explained, pleasantly surprising Michael and Vidora. Then, Pink unveiled another set of schematics. This time, it wasn't just a schematic for a single device. It was a blueprint for an entire setup that far surpassed Michael's surveillance room in his dark castle. These devices. Wow! Michael was genuinely astonished. As an inventor, Michael comprehended the devices and regarded Pink with awe. Where did you get them? Michael inquired. I designed them. Of course, it took me countless hours of reading hundreds of books about runes and the energy flow in this world. But I believe this will work, Pink stated confidently. You designed these devices just by reading books? Michael asked, amazed. He was shocked to learn that Pink had managed to design such complex devices without any special innate talents, solely through her studies. System, we need to grant Pink the inventor trait and give her rune mastery, Michael suggested. It would require the host to spend at least 50 million badass points or more. For now, the system recommends using your inventor trait to build the devices and explore alternative means to understand the runes. The system responded. So, just to clarify, we need to create another medallion to conceal your presence, which means we have to journey to Durin and meet your rune master contact. Afterward, we need to obtain the book that might contain information on how to kill a god. On top of that, we have to set up a surveillance room for you, requiring spiders and seraphine's crystals, which I imagine will be guarded like treasures, Iag summarized, her tone tinged with frustration. And don't forget, we also need more money, so add a robbery or heist to that ever-expanding list, Michael added with a chuckle. Why are you laughing? Iag asked, playfully headbutting Michael. Because it's exciting, Michael replied. To Iag's surprise, Pink wore the same eager smile. She was rubbing her hands together in anticipation of Michael's orders. Hey, race our plan. Well, start by building a device to conceal my presence, which means we have to go to Durin. Once we've done that, we'll acquire the book. Since we're running low on funds, purchasing the book isn't an option. We'll have to steal it, Michael declared. The auction is next month, so we have plenty of time, Pink informed him. While we're in Durin, we'll also find a rune master to help us set up the surveillance room and procure Seraphine's crystals. I can build the devices based on these schematics, Michael explained. I still can't believe you can construct these devices. A power you gained in this world, I presume? Pink inquired, and Michael nodded. So, when I return from Durin, we'll have a medallion and everything we need to set up our surveillance room. However, we need the setup to be transportable. Once I kill Raynar, he'll secure a new base of operations. We can incorporate the same runes into that location, Michael concluded. A new base of operation? From who? Pink asked with curiosity. I have my sources, Pink. I am a god after all, Michael chuckled, keeping any mention of the system to himself. After confirming that the medallion could conceal his presence as long as he didn't frequently use his godly powers, Michael decided to make his way to the kingdom of Durin, ruled by an orc god named Naribo. We'll tackle our problems one by one, Michael said as he retrieved an earpiece from his system storage. While it required some calibration to communicate with the mortal realm, it functioned seamlessly within the realm of gods. In truth, Michael needed his subordinates and Gaia to thrive independently in his absence. If any dire situation arose, he had contingency plans in place known only to him and Azazel. Not even Gaia was aware of these backup plans if things went awry in the mortal realm. Do you have any means of getting me to Durin? Michael inquired. Since many kingdoms in the realm of gods were not, take this, Michael handed the earpiece to Pink. Wow, an earpiece. You have no idea how much I missed this thing, Pink exclaimed, giving the device a quick kiss before placing it in her ear. Do you have any means of getting me to Durin? Michael inquired. Since many kingdoms in the realm of gods were not connected by conventional roads or oceans, portals were required for travel between them. This underground workplace is conveniently located just an hour away from Naribo's temple. The temple has a portal you can use to travel to Durin. However, you might want to employ your stealth skills, as the orcs typically only permit orcs to use the portal, Pink explained, implying that she had used the same portal to reach their current location. They don't allow humans? Does Kingdom Durin also have a rule against humans in their territory? If so, you should take a closer look at him. He's not an orc, the little snakehead protested with an indignant tone. Pink chuckled at the fiery response from the serpent. Don't worry. Most of the orcs are not racists, and they tend to be welcoming to others, especially if you show eagerness to learn instead of displaying violent tendencies. So, I'd recommend not being confrontational in front of the orcs and instead mingle with them as a fellow scholar, Pink suggested. She then glanced at Michael from head to toe. And you should change your attire to green. Orcs don't have a liking for black and red, Pink advised, causing Michael to let out a sigh. Good thing I have spare clothes in my space ring, Michael responded. You opened a portal here, right? Can't you do it again? Michael turned to Kane, but noticed him shaking his head. Sorry, I gave him the rune to teleport here. Honestly, I had no idea your little snake could do that in the first place. But I have no teleportation rune to Durin. Even if I did, I doubt external teleportation would work within Durin, Pink explained. Speaking of which, where did you leave Carmela and her 2 cousins? Michael inquired, looking at Vidora. At the outskirts of the misty swamps. I think we should go there and finish the job. The villagers are never safe from Griffey, Sarba expressed his concern for the people in the village. Don't worry about that. Now that the Pantheon executioner has set foot in the swamps, his angels will soon follow. They'll interrogate every villager, stay with them, and put them under surveillance. It works in your favor, as these angels typically function as unpaid guards, Pink reassured them. No VLB, in a silver lining, Michael sighed. Shall we begin? All these preparations will lead to our ultimate goal. Killing Raynar. Once we do that, we'll be on the Pantheon's top list. Are you ready for this, Pink? Michael asked. Come on, Ghost. I was born ready, and I've been waiting for this moment. We're really back, aren't we? Ghost and Pink, back in the assassination business. Pink couldn't contain her excitement and began to laugh. Assassinating gods. It does have a nice ring to it, Michael also smiled devilishly. With their plans set and their motivations reignited, Michael exchanged a few more words with Pink before preparing to leave the underground safe house. Take care of yourself, Pink. We'll meet again soon, Michael said. You too, Ghost. Don't get yourself killed before we can wreak some havoc together, Pink replied with a grin. After their brief farewell, Michael made his way towards the exit. He followed Pink's directions and soon found a sturdy ladder leading upwards. Climbing up, he emerged from the underground hideout and into a dried woods. Brown leaves covered the forest floor, creating a soft, earthy carpet under his feet. The forest was eerily quiet, and a sense of anticipation hung in the air. Michael knew he had to stay alert, even in these seemingly peaceful surroundings. He followed Pink's instructions, making his way through the woods until he reached a muddy path that led towards Naribo's temple. I don't have to tell you, but you can wait until nightfall and make your move on the orcs under the cover of darkness. You can change your clothes afterward, Pink's voice came through the earpiece, guiding Michael on his path. Michael continued walking as he listened to her advice. Any idea how strong these orcs are? He inquired. Elemental attunement realm or celestial resonance realm. You can't take them down without using your godly powers or alerting them. These are orcs, so they'll have runes everywhere to detect an intruder's presence in the temple. If I were you, I wouldn't kill them but look for another way, Pink suggested. Roger that. We're back in business, Michael replied with a determined smile and excitement in his voice. He was ready to embark on this new journey, one that would cement his status as the deadliest assassin in the entire universe. Chapter 1086 Kingdom of Durin I. As Michael emerged from the forest, he caught sight of a grand temple in the distance. The temple stood proudly on a small island, surrounded by a serene, reflective lake. The water glistened in the soft daylight, enhancing the temple's ethereal beauty. The temple itself was a majestic structure, its architecture reflecting the power and strength of the orcs. It was adorned with intricate carvings, and metal-armored orcs patrolled its perimeter. These sentries kept a vigilant eye on anyone who approached. We should wait until nightfall to make our move, Iag suggested in a low voice, watching the orcs' vigilant patrols. Pink, still connected via the earpiece, chimed in with a suggestion. Why not use the spiders? They can give us an advantage. But Michael had something even more surprising in store. He reached into his inventory and retrieved a small, sleek drone. With a swift movement, he activated it, and the drone's propellers whirred to life. Pink, hearing the distinct sound of the drone hovering, couldn't contain her shock. Is that a drone? Michael smiled and replied, Yes, it is. Pink was awestruck. That's OP in this world. Michael smiled as he reached the edge of the forest. He settled himself on the ground and patiently awaited the setting sun. Closing his eyes, he began to meditate, seeking to maintain his focus and clarity of mind during this crucial wait. As Michael meditated in the quiet of the approaching night, a strange sensation overcame him. It was as though whispers had taken form inside his mind, faint and ethereal. These whispers began to coalesce into voices, echoing like distant chants. God of darkness, one voice called out, its tone reverent. Dark Lord, bless us with your darkness. Protector of shadows, another voice joined in, fervently imploring. Hear our prayers. We beseech you. Soon, the voices multiplied, overlapping with one another, creating a harmonious chorus that resonated in his consciousness. Lord of eternal night, a chorus of worshippers pleaded, guide us through the shadows. Protect us from the hunters who stalk our every step. God of shadows, yet another voice entreated, bestow upon us your mercy and blessing. Let your darkness shield us from harm. In this meditative state, Michael could feel the collective devotion of his worshippers, their cries for protection and guidance. They worshipped him, the God of darkness, with unwavering faith, seeking his aid in their darkest hours. Their voices filled his mind, a symphony of devotion, and Michael couldn't help but feel the weight of their prayers. The host should start responding to their prayers and build your worshipper base. Michael, deep in his meditation, heard the system's suggestion. It made sense, but he knew he had more immediate concerns at hand. I have too much on my plate right now. I won't ignore them forever, but they've survived here without me this long. I'm certain they can survive a bit longer, Michael replied to the system, his focus unwavering. As the sun vanished beyond the horizon, the world was bathed in darkness, and the temple ahead became a radiant beacon. Its marble structure gleamed brilliantly, crowned by a powerful orb that emitted a shimmering golden light, casting a warm aura around the sacred grounds. The orcs, adorned in their formidable metal armor, were illuminated by this brilliant light. From the safety of the forest's edge, Michael retrieved a tablet and a fleet of drones from his system's storage. With a calculated precision, the drones soared toward the temple, transmitting their live feed to Michael's tablet. Michael scrutinized the drone feeds displayed on his tablet, absorbing every detail of the temple's surroundings. His eyes were fixed on the golden orb at the pinnacle, which illuminated the orcs patrolling the temple grounds below. Iag and Saba, perched on his shoulder, keenly observed the feeds with him, acting as his extra set of eyes and ears. As Michael continued to watch, he noticed the orcs engaging in casual conversations while making their rounds. Their voices and laughter cut through the still night, providing valuable insights into their day-to-day lives. Novi LB, in one orc, leaning against a pillar, boasted about his strength. I swear, I lifted a boulder that must have weighed 100 stone last week. Another orc, sitting on a nearby bench, chimed in with a smirk. You always exaggerate, Grunk. It was more like 50 stones, and you had help. Laughter erupted among the orcs, their camaraderie evident. Meanwhile, Michael patiently charted the patrol routes in his mind. He noted the positions of the guards, the entrances and exits, and potential hiding spots. The tension in the air was palpable as he planned his entry into the temple undetected. With the orcs engrossed in their conversations, Michael seized the opportune moment. Silently, he maneuvered the drones to a specific location, capturing a blind spot near the temple's entrance. Ensuring that his movements went unnoticed, he used his godly agility to leap from the forest's concealment into the shadows cast by the temple itself. As Michael crouched low and concealed his presence, he whispered to Iag and Sarba, keep an eye on the patrols for me. Let me know if they change their routines or if anyone's approaching. The two snakeheads nodded silently, their focus unwavering on the drone feeds. Michael, with his heart racing and his senses heightened, began his stealthy infiltration of the temple. Amidst the orcs' banter, one of them suddenly exclaimed, Oh, spirits! I forgot something back in the barracks. Be right back. The orc promptly altered his patrol route, striding in a direction that would take him perilously close to Michael's hiding spot. It sent a jolt of tension through Michael, who quickly signaled Iag and Sarba for information. Iag's voice hissed urgently in Michael's ear. Someone's heading your way, Ghost. Swift and quiet. Without wasting a second, Michael pointed his arm above the temple, and with a mechanical whir, his Mark III grappling hook shot into action. It launched him into the air, and he ascended swiftly, aided by his godly strength and agility. He soared above the temple, feeling the cool night air rush past him as he hung hidden in the shadows, his presence masked by the inky darkness. As Michael dangled above the temple grounds, he watched the approaching orc with bated breath, praying that his concealed position would go unnoticed. While Michael clung to the shadowed eaves of the temple, he heard Pink's voice whispering in his head, Ghost, how's everything going? With extreme caution, Michael replied in his mind. Going good. Pink continued her telepathic guidance. Once you're inside the temple, make your way to the west side. You'll find the portal there. Just place your hand on the pedestal, and ITLL activate the portal straight to Durin. The other side won't be monitored like this at this hour. Beneath the shadowed eaves of the temple, the orc who had lingered below called out to another passing orc. They exchanged words about returning to Durin soon to meet their families. The orc under Michael remarked, I can't wait to return to Durin. It's been too long. The other orc nodded in agreement. Just wait until the harvest festival. We'll get to go to our homes with a nice bonus. I'll be worth the wait. As they chatted, Michael stayed hidden, taking mental notes of their conversation and biding his time for the perfect opportunity to continue his infiltration. Iag whispered, These orcs don't seem like they're going to move anytime soon, and if we linger here for too long, we'll be spotted. Michael nodded, his eyes still on the two orcs beneath him. He mentally commanded one of the drones to hover away silently. Then, using another drone, he toppled down a stack of books from a nearby bench, creating a sudden, loud distraction. The two orcs, startled by the abrupt noise, exchanged surprised glances. One of them said, What was that? Did you hear something? The other orc replied, Yeah, it came from over there. Let's go check it out. With cautious steps, the orcs moved away from their previous spot, heading towards the source of the disturbance, leaving Michael free to continue his mission inside the temple. Michael landed silently on the ground and continued to sneak his way into the temple. The interior was vast and empty, dominated by a massive statue of a burly orc in the center. Michael couldn't help but ask Pink, Is that statue the god Naribo? Pink's voice echoed in his head, confirming, Yes, that's Naribo. Now, you need to head toward the portal. With a quick nod, Michael proceeded to the western side of the temple. There, he found a shadowed room, slightly shielded from the main area. He reached for the doorknob, but it refused to turn. Frustrated, he reported to Pink, It's locked. Pink's reply came with surprise, It's not supposed to be locked. Simultaneously, Michael heard approaching footsteps. Iag urged him, Do something before they catch us. Feeling the pressure, Michael summoned his strength and with a determined effort, broke the doorknob, allowing him to slip into the room just in time to avoid being detected by the approaching orcs. As Michael hurriedly entered the room, he could hear the muffled conversation of approaching orcs. One orc grumbled, We need to check the portal room. Another replied, Yeah, I heard some strange noises from that direction. Michael's heart raced as he spotted the portal. It was a shimmering circular opening surrounded by intricate runes. In the center of the room stood a pedestal. Without wasting a moment, Michael extended his hand and firmly placed it on the pedestal. Instantly, the portal lit up with radiant energy, and the runes etched into it began to glow brightly. As the orcs drew closer to the room, Michael didn't hesitate. He grabbed Vidora and, with one final glance at the temple behind him, leaped into the portal, disappearing just in the nick of time before the orcs reached his location. Chapter 1087 Kingdom of Durin 2 Exiting the portal felt like a whirlwind of colors and sensations, and when Michael landed on the other side, he found himself in a spacious, dimly lit room. The room was eerily empty, with stone walls and an imposing iron door at one end. It wasn't quite what Iag had expected. I've exited the portal, Michael whispered to Pink, who was still in his earpiece. Pink's voice came through, calm and composed. Good. Now, head out through that iron door, and remember to change your robes to green. With a thought, Michael's black robes transformed into green ones. He then opened the imposing iron door and stepped into a massive marble-floored hall. Several orcs roamed around, some engaged in conversation, while others appeared busy with various tasks. Amidst the bustling scene, a female orc with vibrant green skin and a welcoming smile on her face rushed toward him. She extended her hand in a friendly gesture and said, Welcome to Durin, honored guest. Imglurna. Are you here for the upcoming harvest festival? Michael was taken aback by the warm welcome but quickly regained his composure. Yes, I am, he replied with a friendly smile. I've heard it's a grand celebration. Could you tell me more about it? Glurna's eyes sparkled with excitement as she began to explain the festivities and handed him a map of the Kingdom of Durin. It's going to be wonderful. Hey, race a map to help you navigate the festivities and explore our beautiful kingdom. Michael graciously accepted the map, thanking Glurna for her assistance. With the map in hand, he exited the building, now ready to navigate the Orc Kingdom of Durin and continue his mission. Stepping out of the building, Michael was greeted by a breathtaking sight. Before him stretched the elegant kingdom of the Orcs, adorned with vibrant decorations for the upcoming harvest festival. Colorful banners fluttered in the gentle breeze, and strings of lanterns cast a warm and inviting glow. The architecture of Durin was a captivating blend of grandeur and nature. Towering stone structures were entwined with lush greenery, creating a harmonious atmosphere. Orcs bustled about, their laughter and chatter filling the air as they prepared for the festival. Pink's voice chimed in his earpiece. "Welcome to Durin, Ghost. Enjoy the festivities, but remember, we have a mission to complete." As Michael strolled through the lively streets of Durin, Pink's voice guided him with precision. "All right, Ghost. Head west from your current location. You should see a large oak tree. Take a right there, and you'll be on Amber Street," Pink directed. Following her instructions, Michael navigated through the bustling Orc city, the map in his hand and his earpiece securely in place. The streets were alive with festivities, and the Orc inhabitants seemed to be in high spirits. Pink continued to provide directions. "Good. Now make a left onto Amber Street, and keep going straight. You'll come to a crossroads, and that's where you'll find Gilrut's rune workshop." Michael appreciated the clarity of Pink's guidance, and as he reached the indicated crossroads, he paused. "I'm curious, how exactly did you manage to get this Orc, Gilrut, to owe you a favor?" Iag, perched on Michael's shoulder, seemed equally curious. "Yeah, Pink, what did you do?" NOV-E1/B/I-, and there was a brief pause, and Pink's voice carried a hint of somberness. "It's not something I like to talk about, but I'll tell you. Gal, the Orc we were talking about earlier, he didn't just harass Lonnie. He hurt someone close to Gilrut. When I took care of Gal, Gilrut felt a sense of gratitude. You know, for delivering some well-deserved justice." Michael nodded, understanding the unspoken meaning behind Pink's words. Sometimes, the bonds of friendship and gratitude could be stronger than any written contract. As Michael followed Pink's guidance through the vibrant streets of Durin, his ears caught the sounds of a commotion up ahead. He saw a gathering of orcs, elves and dwarves, all standing before a building with a glowing sign that read, "Ridion Funds." The crowd was agitated, and a tall orc in jade-green armor was shouting at the building. "Come out before the innocents inside the building get hurt," the orc bellowed. Curiosity got the better of Michael, and he decided to investigate the situation. He relayed the events to Pink, his voice low. "Pink, something's happening here. It looks like there's some kind of commotion outside the Ridion Funds building." Pink's voice crackled in his earpiece, concern evident. This could be the work of the Vilnius gang, causing trouble as usual. Michael frowned. "Vilnius gang? Who are they?" Pink explained, "They're a local gang made up of rowdy orcs who live outside the kingdom. They've been a thorn in the kingdom's side for a while." Iag, perched on Michael's shoulder, chimed in. "This isn't our business, Ghost. Let's keep moving." Michael considered Iag's words but continued to walk toward the commotion, curiosity gnawing at him. However, he didn't have to go far before he overheard a hushed conversation among some orcs in the crowd. "Did you hear? Even Runemaster Gilrut is stuck inside the building, held hostage." Those words stopped Michael in his tracks. His eyes widened, and he exchanged a quick glance with Iag. Gilrut, the Runemaster who was supposed to help them, was in danger. Michael turned back to the commotion with a newfound resolve. "Pink, it seems like Runemaster Gilrut is in trouble inside that building. I can't just walk away from this." Pink's voice crackled with frustration and concern in Michael's earpiece as she urgently whispered, "Ghost, you don't understand. The Vilnius gang is ruthless. They don't care about killing innocents." Michael could feel the weight of the situation intensifying. Pink continued, "The orcs here, they follow rules and procedures. They'll take their time to strategize. If they lead this rescue mission, it might end in disaster. You have to do something to get Gilrut out." Michael understood the gravity of the situation. He had to act fast and decisively. Pink's voice grew even more urgent as she advised, "You'll have to improvise, Ghost. Find a way to rescue the hostages and Gilrut. But be cautious. And don't underestimate the Vilnius gang. As Michael merged into the growing crowd, the tension in the air was palpable. Shouts emanated from inside the building, capturing everyone's attention. A gang member within, his voice seething with menace, addressed an orc outside, referring to him as Officer Barug. The gang member's threat sliced through the air like a blade, chilling the crowd to silence. He declared, "Officer Barug, you listen up. We've got 25 hostages in here, including your renowned runemaster, and we won't hesitate to slit their throats." Barug, struggling to maintain his composure, inquired with a trembling voice, "What are your demands?" The gang member's reply was resolute. "We need a flying ship, and it better be loaded with enough rune energy to take us straight to the next divine portal outside this kingdom." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. The gang member's ultimatum hung heavily in the air. He didn't stop there, his threat intensified as he added, "If our demands aren't met within the next 3 hours, we will start killing the hostages one by one, starting with your precious Gilrut." Officer Barug, attempting to buy some time, negotiated with the gang member. He explained, "Listen, it's the Harvest Festival, and most of the flying ships are currently in use. It'll take time to arrange one for you." The gang member, however, responded with a cynical laugh. "Time, huh? We're not very patient folks, you see," he sneered. With an ominous tone, he issued a chilling threat. "To help you pick up the pace, how about I cut off one of these hostages' hands and send it out to you? That should remind you of the ticking clock." Barrag's face paled and he hastily pleaded, No, don't do anything like that. I promise I'll do my best to get you what you want." The gang member's lips curled into a malicious grin as he gave his final order. "All right then, Officer Barug. Close off the street, and I don't want to see any of your stupid soldiers anywhere near this building." Officer Barug, trying to ensure the safety of the hostages and buy more time, proposed, "According to our laws, we need to send someone inside the building to verify the condition of the hostages." The gang member, clearly uninterested in following any rules, scoffed, "I'm not letting any stupid orc soldier inside." Barug, determined to uphold the law, argued, "It's the law and we must abide by it." With a mocking grin, the gang member retorted, "Law-abiding citizens? Do we look like we care about laws? Tell you what, I might consider letting a civilian inside too, someone who's not from your military." Barug was taken aback by the suggestion. He knew civilians without military training wouldn't willingly step into such a perilous situation. Anxious, he replied, "No civilian without military training would agree to this." The gang member chuckled wickedly, replying, "Well then, Officer Barug, looks like you're out of luck." The situation grew tenser by the moment, and the fate of the hostages hung in the balance. Officer Barug, his fists clenched and frustration evident on his face, muttered curses under his breath as he tried to navigate this precarious situation. Suddenly, a voice broke through the tension. It was Michael who stepped forward and offered a surprising solution. "I can go inside if you don't have anyone else," he calmly stated. Barug, as well as the crowd, was startled by this unexpected offer. He questioned, "Who are you, human?" Michael maintained a reassuring smile as he responded, "Just a concerned citizen who is willing to help. From the looks of it, you desperately need assistance." Barug hesitated, torn between the urgency of the situation and his duty to follow protocol. "I can't let a civilian without proper training inside," he argued. Michael, still composed, calmly countered, "The longer we waste time, the more dangerous the situation will become for the hostages. I'm volunteering for this. I'll do my best to talk some sense into the gang members." Barug let out a heavy sigh, realizing the urgency of the situation. He turned to Michael and said, "You'll need to be very careful when you go inside." He retrieved a parchment from his pocket and handed it to Michael, saying, "This is a consent form. It states that you've agreed to volunteer for this mission." Michael chuckled slightly, deciding to use a different name for this particular endeavor. He quickly jotted down John on the parchment and handed it back to Barug. Barug, now holding the parchment with John's agreement, raised his voice and shouted at the building, "I'm sending a civilian inside. Do not harm the hostages." From within the building, the gang member's voice echoed back, "Who is that fool?" Unbeknownst to the gang members, they were about to unwittingly allow a wolf in sheep's clothing into their midst. Chapter 1088. Bank robber with a system. When Michael reached the entrance of the Ridion Funds building, he paused outside, waiting for someone from the Vilnius gang to unlock the door. Open the door for that scapegoat. One of the Vilnius gang members laughed from inside. As the people of Durin watched the unfolding scene with a mixture of curiosity and concern for the human safety, the door to Ridion Funds creaked open. Stepping into the doorway, Michael found himself face to face with a green-skinned orc adorned with numerous tattoos and piercings, clearly aiming to intimidate him. "I'm here to ensure the hostages are all right," Michael stated calmly, his voice unwavering. "Try not to become another hostage," the orc replied with a cold, humorless chuckle. With his large hands, he thoroughly frisked Michael from head to toe, searching for any concealed weapons. Having stashed his armor and dark swords within the system storage, Michael remained unperturbed by the search. "He's clean," the orc who had conducted the search announced to his comrades. "NOV-E1/B/I-N, let that goat inside," came the voice of the same gang member who had negotiated with Barug earlier. As Michael cautiously stepped inside, he found himself in an elegant hall adorned with counters displaying various golden artifacts. The marble floor gleamed beneath his feet, reflecting the soft light that emanated from ornate crystal chandeliers hanging from the ceiling. Inside, the same orc who had frisked him earlier looked at Vidora with mild amusement. "Well, ain't that a fancy three-headed snake you got there," he remarked, oblivious to Vidora's true identity as a natural-born hydra. Michael maintained his calm facade, recognizing that he needed to play the part of a concerned civilian to navigate this dangerous situation and rescue the hostages and Gilrut, the renowned runemaster. "Where are the hostages?" Michael inquired, expecting to find the captives in the hall, but it was strangely empty except for a few rough-looking orcs. There were no hostages to be seen. In response, the orc trailing behind him let out a menacing growl. "Welcome to the party, human," the orc sneered, indicating that things were not as they seemed. As Michael proceeded cautiously, he was met by an elf in brown robes with vibrant blue hair. The elf greeted him with a devilish grin. "So, our hero is a human," the elf chuckled, taking Michael aback. Michael had assumed that the negotiator had spoken to earlier was an orc, but to his surprise, it was an elf. "Don't be a racist, human. An elf can lead a group of orcs. The Vilnius gang has no place for racism," the elf remarked as if Head read Michael's thoughts. "He's the biggest racist jerk we've ever encountered," an orc chimed in, laughing at the elf's expense. Now, our precious human isn't here to judge who's the most racist among us but to see the hostages," the elf replied, addressing Michael's feigned fear. Then, the elf turned his gaze toward the orc following Michael and flashed an evil smile. "Close the door and activate the runes," he ordered. "What are you doing?" Michael asked, pretending to be frightened. "Don't be afraid, human. We know how crafty the orcs outside can be. We don't want them listening or seeing what's happening inside," the elf explained with a smirk. Michael observed several runes glowing with crimson light on the walls and ceiling. "What are those?" Michael inquired, maintaining his fearful act. The elf laughed and clarified, "These are anti-surveillance runes, one of Runemaster Gilrut's creations. Isn't it ironic that we're using the runes he designed to keep him locked in?" The elf's eyes shifted toward Vidora, who rested atop Michael's shoulder. Intrigued, he reached out a hand as if to caress the creature. However, Vidora reacted defensively, hissing and snapping at the elf's hand, causing him to withdraw hastily. The elf chuckled at Vidora's reaction. "A feisty three-headed serpent you have there," he remarked to Michael with a smirk, clearly amused by the creature's aggression. "Show him the hostages and bring him back to me," the elf ordered the orc positioned behind Michael. With a firm grip on Michael's shoulder, the orc guided him in another direction under the elf's command. Amused chuckles emanated from the orc gang as Michael was ushered closer to the room where the hostages were held captive. After a brief walk, he found himself before a glass wall, peering through it to see the hostages. They lay on the ground, bound and gagged, their expressions a mix of fear and desperation. The elf, who had been leading this gang of rogues, joined Michael at the glass wall. He pointed toward the enormous vault door situated behind the hostages, his tone dripping with impatience. "That's the vault of Ridion Funds," the elf explained, a sinister grin playing on his lips. Michael's frown deepened as he watched an orc, adorned in emerald green robes, diligently engraving runes onto the massive door. "You have 1 more hour to break the runes, Gilrut. Otherwise, we are going to kill your friends in there," the elf named Elmer declared to the orc working on the vault door. With a low growl, Gilrut responded, I am working as fast as I can, Elmer. I don't care. I just need the vault opened in 1 hour, Elmer retorted callously. He turned his attention toward one of his orc comrades positioned among the hostages. The orc seized a young man by the neck, lifting him into the air. Panic filled the young man's eyes as he struggled to breathe within the orc's vice-like grip. "Or my orc friend there will snap his neck like a twig," Elmer taunted, his laughter echoing with cruelty. "Then, hell continue to do so until you open the vault or run out of hostages to kill." Elmer's gaze shifted back to Michael, his expression cold and calculating. "Now that you've seen the hostages are in great shape," Elmer said, "run back to Barug and tell him he better have what we asked for in 2 hours." With a firm tug, the orc behind Michael propelled him back toward the bustling main hall of the building. As they moved through the corridors, Michael couldn't help but ponder the dire situation he found himself in. His thoughts raced, and a question gnawed at him, one he couldn't resist asking his ever-present companion. "System, I want to know if I can take out these orcs," Michael inquired quietly, not wanting to draw any attention to himself as he walked. In response, the system's voice echoed in his mind, providing a potential solution to his query. The host should spend 2 million points to unlock the Eyes of Darkness ability, allowing you to perceive the cultivation stages of beings in the realm of gods. Without hesitation, Michael made his decision. "Upgrade the skill," he commanded, fully aware that it was a crucial investment. Almost immediately, a sharp, searing pain seared through his eyes, a signal of the skill enhancement process. The Eyes of Darkness have been upgraded. The host can now discern the energy radiation emitted by cultivators in the realm of gods. Weaker foes will display green energy radiation, while those on par with the host will radiate yellow energy. Any adversary stronger than the host will emit red energy radiation. With this newfound ability, Michael was armed with a unique advantage that could greatly influence the course of events to come. "Why did you choose to upgrade the skill without considering the points?" the system queried, puzzled by Michael's seemingly impulsive decision. Michael's response was light-hearted but cryptic. "You'll see," he chuckled to himself, not divulging his full plan to the system. As they reached the hall where he had first encountered the elf, Michael activated his newly enhanced Eyes of Darkness. Immediately, he noticed a distinct green aura enveloping the orcs around him. The Eyes of Darkness gauge the energy radiation of adversaries by comparing it to the host's energy levels when not using godly powers. Should the host opt to employ his godly abilities, the Eyes of Darkness will recalibrate accordingly. With this ability active, Michael felt more confident than ever in assessing the potential threats that surrounded him. If Michael had possessed any other weapons, the orcs would have exhibited yellow energy radiation. However, due to his godly raw strength and the dark swords in his possession, Michael had the upper hand, despite lacking a cultivation stage in this world. Moreover, these orcs were merely at the Qi Awakening realm, the second stage of cultivation. As they neared the exit, the orc escorting Michael forcefully pushed him. "Get out, human!" Reacting swiftly, Michael seized a nearby chair and wedged it under the door handle, effectively barring the exit. The orc, baffled by this sudden turn of events, growled at Michael, demanding an explanation. "It's game time," then Vidora, the three-headed serpent perched on Michael's shoulder, spoke, surprising the orc and catching him off guard. Michael remained remarkably composed, despite the circumstances. He inquired calmly, "Shall we start again?" The orc, growing increasingly agitated, reached out to grasp Michael's throat. In a rapid and well-coordinated move, Michael retaliated by delivering a powerful kick to the orc's groin while simultaneously striking the orc in the throat, preventing him from making any noise. Other orcs, witnessing this unexpected turn of events, were startled. Before they could react and rush towards Michael, he had already seized the orc he had incapacitated, addressing the others in a composed tone. "Let's avoid a fight. It's better if we work together," he suggested calmly while dragging the incapacitated orc toward the group. Michael dragged the subdued orc toward the center of the hall. Halfway there, he seized a chair, balancing it in his other hand, and positioned it in the middle of the room. The orcs, their expressions growing increasingly hostile, emitted low growls and uttered menacing threats. As Michael calmly settled into the chair, crossing one leg over the other, he maintained his composure in the face of their aggression. The orcs encircled him, their demeanor increasingly hostile. "Who do you think you are, human?" one of the orcs sneered, baring his sharp teeth. "Yeah, you've got some nerve walking in here like you own the place," another orc chimed in, cracking his knuckles ominously. Michael met their hostile gazes with an air of confidence, exuding an aura that suggested he was not to be underestimated. You guys said him a hero, didn't you? Well, you've got it all wrong. I'm the villain in this tale, and I'm about to clean this place out, Michael declared with a sinister chuckle, leaving the orcs utterly stunned. You can relax and get your cut, or you can piss me off. If you do, I'll rob this place clean and you'll take the fall. Michael laughed with a sinister tone, reveling in his newfound villainy. Chapter 1089. Becoming a bank robber. When the orcs observed how Michael sat there so nonchalantly, their rage began to bubble. Unlike the scholarly orcs who cherished learning and avoided violence, the villainous orcs reveled in brutality. Michael's audacious act of sitting calmly before them ignited their desire to tear him apart. You must be out of your mind, human, grumbled another orc. But Michael gently set down the orc he had subdued and propped his leg on top of him. The orcs seethed with anger, ready to pounce on Michael. Stop! Just as the orcs were about to unleash their fury upon him, Elmer's voice resonated through the hole, freezing them in their tracks. Elmer, too, couldn't hide his surprise at the sight of the human sitting so casually, his leg resting atop the orc. Well, this is quite unexpected, Elmer chuckled. Yet, a dangerous glint lurked within his eyes, filled with a silent intent to kill. Michael noticed a yellow aura enveloping Elmer, a clear sign that Elmer possessed strength equal to his own. Of course, Michael was aware that if he unleashed his godly powers, Elmer wouldn't stand a chance in a battle. If you're this composed and collected, I'm sure you've got some kind of plan. I doubt you volunteered to see the hostages out of sheer heroism. You must have other intentions, Elmer remarked, then pulled up a chair and seated himself across from Michael. Of course, Michael replied with a chuckle. As you said, I'd be a fool to simply volunteer to check on the hostages. Elmer glanced at the orcs, silently gesturing for them to step back. The orcs despised seeing their fellow orc under a human's foot, but they dared not cross Elmer. Surprise me with your plan, human. But let's start with your name, Elmer requested. John, Michael calmly stated. So John, what's your plan here? My orcs have the place surrounded, and the fate of the hostages rests in my hands, Elmer said as he reclined in his chair. Michael listened to Elmer silently. You're certainly no angel, that's clear. Even if you're stronger than us in terms of cultivation, you can't simply kill us and rescue the hostages. In fact, if you did, you'd be sentenced to death by the Duran orcs. I must say, those orcs are sticklers for rules and laws, Elmer explained, his tone almost tinged with enjoyment, as if relishing the game. Only if they find your bodies, Michael replied, his voice laced with both coldness and amusement. A clever one, aren't you? You must have guessed that I wouldn't have come in here and locked myself in with you if I didn't have an escape plan, Michael continued, nodding toward Vedora's heads. So why don't we stop wasting each other's time and split the loot inside the vault? Fighting amongst ourselves will only give Barug and his men more time to break through the door. You and I both know we can't remain locked in here forever, Michael suggested. Upon hearing this, Elmer burst into laughter. John, you must have nerves of steel. What makes you think we'd share anything with you? He asked. In response, Michael didn't answer but summoned the dark flames. Pitch-black flames materialized above Michael's hand and danced ominously. Elmer's smile instantly froze as he felt the intense heat emanating from the dark flames. He had never witnessed such all-consuming black flames in his life. Under the shocked gazes of Elmer and the orcs, Michael pressed the dark flames onto the orc beneath his foot. Arg! The orc let out a blood-curdling scream, but the runes in the room prevented any sound from escaping. The dark flames devoured the orc like a ravenous beast, and within moments, the orc was reduced to nothing. Elmer was startled to see that not even ashes remained. In a matter of seconds, the fully grown 7-foot orc had been reduced to mere nothingness by the flames. Now tell me, Elmer, do you think the Duran orcs wouldn't believe me if I told them you and your gang looted the vault and disappeared? Michael asked, his smile chilling. The dark flames had left both the orcs and Elmer visibly sweating. As the dark flames dissipated, the room's temperature gradually returned to normal. That dark flame. That's something, Elmer remarked, his surprise evident. However, there was no sign of fear in his expression. You seem to have forgotten about the hostages, John. I can recognize a cold-blooded killer when I see one. You might be a killer, but you won't harm the hostages, Elmer declared. What's happening in there? Pink's voice echoed in Michael's ear, but he ignored her, keeping his focus on Elmer. Instead of responding to Elmer's comment, Michael leaned forward, pointing his fingers at his eyes. Look into my eyes and tell me I don't have a plan to deal with the hostages, Michael challenged. When Elmer locked eyes with Michael, he could clearly discern that John had some sort of plan. His confidence and demeanor spoke volumes, making Elmer second-guess any thoughts of eliminating John. Slowly, Elmer began to realize that John might have a strategy to prevent them from harming the hostages. Why are you negotiating with that human scum, Elmer? One of the orcs, losing patience, growled. Yeah, just kill him and toss his body out. ITLL send a message. Another orc roared. Michael knew he could dispatch the orcs and Elmer and incinerate their bodies with the dark flames if necessary. However, he considered that option a last resort. Instead, Michael wanted to collaborate with Elmer and the Vilnius gang. He saw an opportunity to work with them to start a side business that would amass a fortune in gold coins. Michael felt no guilt or remorse about contemplating robbing places like Ridion Funds. According to Pink, Durin was a wealthy kingdom, and accumulating wealth was necessary for his survival in this world. In comparison to his own survival, the prospect of robbery didn't weigh heavily on Michael's conscience. We both won't get anything we want until that lazy orc Gilrut breaks the vault. I have to say, John, I spent weeks planning this heist, and you are complicating things. I don't like complications, Elmer coldly remarked, but Michael couldn't help but burst into laughter. Weeks? Are you kidding me? Michael chuckled. I could have robbed this place clean in a day or two, he added, with a confident grin. A smart man like you knows that giving me my share will be fruitful in the long run. Think about it, Michael urged. Hearing Michael's proposal, Elmer couldn't help but snicker. You said you could rob this place in a day or two, so I don't see why you need us, he said, playing along to gather more information. It was a high-stakes game of mental chess between Michael and Elmer. Because I have too many things to do. If you agree to work with me, I'll let you choose the place and time of the robbery and do the legwork. I will give you a foolproof plan to hit the places and clean out the loot with 0 complications and 100% success rate, Michael calmly offered. Hearing Michael's intention to rob more places, Vidora felt a mix of shock and excitement. I've had enough of this. Suddenly, an impatient orc charged at Michael from behind. Michael didn't even flinch as he assessed the approaching orc through Elmer's eyes. Swiftly, he moved to the side, grabbed the orc's axe, and pulled the orc off balance. The orc had severely underestimated Michael's raw strength. In their eyes, he was just a human, but they had no inkling of his godly power. As far as they were concerned, he made the orc feel weightless. When the orc fell under the force of Michael's pull, he snatched the axe from the orc's hand and cleanly severed the orc's head from his shoulders with a single powerful swing. Blood splattered across the floor and onto Elmer's face. The orc's lifeless body twitched as its head rolled on the ground. Michael stood there, his face speckled with blood, and flashed a confident smile at Elmer. If you want to work with me, you need to get rid of these idiots, Michael said. The orcs who had witnessed Michael's incredible speed and raw strength took a step back, their hearts gripped by fear and shock. N/O-V/Epsilon-L-B 1//N. What if you rat us out when you get outside? Elmer asked, considering the possibility of working with Michael instead of opposing him. Honor among thieves, Michael simply replied. When the other orcs grew agitated and started to inch forward, Elmer swiftly rose to his feet, raising his hands in a calming gesture. Stop, Elmer firmly ordered his men. I love thrills like this. So, I will agree to give you a share. But I can't give you half. As you can see, I have more mouths to feed, Elmer reasoned. Since we will be working together in the future, I can let you take 65% of the loot, Michael proposed. Ha ha ha, Elmer laughed heartily before wiping the blood from his face. He then extended his hand toward Michael, sealing their agreement with a handshake. You have to clean this blood, Elmer pointed out, and Michael nodded in agreement. With a flick of his wrist, Michael produced a colorless liquid vial and poured it onto the ground. To Elmer's surprise, the liquid flowed across the floor, completely erasing any traces of blood. Now, let's go break the vault, Michael suggested. Unbeknownst to Elmer, a spider had discreetly crawled onto his robes, concealing itself in his pockets. Soon, This inconspicuous spider would transmit everything Elmer saw and heard back to Pink's hideout. Unintentionally, Elmer had just become Michael's subordinate in the pursuit of robbing wealthy places. As they walked toward the vault, Michael summoned the system to change his attire. His emerald green robes were swiftly replaced with dark robes, his face concealed by a hood and a skull mask. "I assume you have a plan to break the vault?" Elmer inquired, growing more intrigued as he witnessed John's transformation. "I thought you would never ask," Michael snickered. Upon reaching the vault room, Michael observed Gilrut still diligently working on the runes to breach the vault. The hostages lay trembling on the ground, their fear palpable. Without hesitation, Michael tossed a glass vial containing his own concoction into the vault room through the open door. The vial shattered upon impact, startling the hostages. "What the hell is this?" Gilrut muttered in confusion as he examined the shattered vial. However, before he could react, Gilrut collapsed, unconscious. Everyone inside the vault room, including the orc guards, followed suit, falling to the ground. Michael then calmly stepped through the door and stood before the imposing metal vault door. "I am waiting," Elmer stated, his hand subtly gripping the dagger at his waist, prepared for any unexpected actions from John. To Elmer's astonishment, Michael merely clenched the vault door with his godly strength. Elmer watched in awe as the solid metal door trembled, with cracks beginning to form in the surrounding wall. The massive vault door continued to crack and tremble under Michael's relentless grip until, with a thunderous crash, it fell to the ground. A dazzling sight met their eyes as the vault's contents were revealed. Shimmering piles of gold coins, sparkling rubies and diamonds, and gleaming gold bars and biscuits lay before them, bathed in a brilliant radiant light that danced across their faces. Michael couldn't help but be amused at the sight before him. He turned to Elmer and the other orcs, a wry grin playing on his lips. "Now that's what I call a damn good score," Michael remarked with a chuckle, his eyes fixed on the glittering treasure trove. Chapter 1090. Becoming filthy rich again, brute strength beats rune strength, Elmer admitted, clearly surprised by Michael's raw power. He couldn't hide his astonishment at witnessing Michael's physical prowess. "Get to work," Elmer commanded his orc comrades, and they eagerly obeyed, pulling out large sacks from their space rings and rushing to fill them with the precious loot from the vault. Michael, however, furrowed his brow as he noticed the orcs packing their sacks instead of using their space rings to store the wealth. The treasure within the vault was protected by intricate runes, preventing it from being stored in a space ring. "Leave 35% for our friend John here," Elmer stated with a hint of amusement. "I wonder how you plan to carry all this wealth on you," Elmer mused, his snicker echoing in the room. Michael remained silent, well aware that traditional means like space rings wouldn't work for this enchanted treasure. However, Michael had a trick up his sleeve: his system storage. As the orcs filled their sacks and hurriedly dragged them outside of the vault, Michael calmly stepped inside. Elmer observed him closely, curious about what he might do next. To Elmer's astonishment, Michael simply waved his hand, causing a strange white light to envelop all the remaining gold coins, rubies, diamonds, and every valuable item in the vault. Within moments, the bright light vanished, taking the entire contents of the vault with it. "What kind of space ring are you wearing?" Elmer asked, his voice revealing his shock at the incredible display of power. "Working with you might not be a bad idea after all," Elmer admitted, recognizing the potential benefits of collaborating with John. In Elmer's eyes, Michael seemed resourceful, someone who could be used to gain advantages within the Vilnius gang. He contemplated using John as a contact to climb the ranks. However, Elmer was completely unaware that Michael had his own motives and plans for exploiting the Vilnius gang to his advantage. Once all the wealth within the vault had vanished, Michael turned to Elmer with a smile. "Now, place the dagger against my throat and tell Barug to send the flying ships within half an hour," Michael instructed. He snatched a dagger from one of the orcs, causing them and Elmer to react with agitation, stepping back cautiously. Michael smiled as he changed his robes back to the emerald green attire. With deliberate slowness, he ran the dagger across his chest, cutting his own flesh. Blood trickled down, staining his green robes crimson. "This will give Barug the motivation he needs," Michael remarked confidently. An orc stood firmly behind Michael, holding the dagger against his throat as they proceeded. Michael maintained his composure, not showing any signs of fear or discomfort. Elmer led the way, and soon they reached the building's entrance. He pushed open the heavy doors, revealing the bustling scene outside. Barug and a contingent of soldiers were on the scene, trying to keep the curious citizens at bay, creating a perimeter around the Ridion Funds building. Barug's expression turned grim as he noticed the blood staining Michael's body. His fists clenched in anger, and he approached Michael, his voice low and stern. "What did you do?" Barug demanded. His eyes locked onto Michael's. Elmer, however, remained calm and composed. He let out a chuckle before asking, "Where is the flying ship I asked for?" "It's on its way," Barug replied, his gaze never leaving Michael. Elmer's tone shifted as impatience crept in. "I don't like the ship being late," he said, then signaled to the orc standing behind Michael. Without hesitation, the orc drew the dagger across Michael's shoulder. However, to his astonishment, it felt as if he was cutting into a solid stone wall. "What in the world?" The orc muttered to himself, staring at Michael's seemingly invulnerable flesh in disbelief. "Stop hurting the hostages, Elmer. You didn't want this robbery case to become murder," Barug growled, frustration evident in his voice. However, Elmer merely laughed, an eerie sound that hung in the air. "Officer Barug, we are the Vilnius gang. We commit murders for breakfast and more murders for dinner. So no, we don't give a damn. Unless you want this hero to die before your very eyes, I want the airship to arrive within 10 seconds, Elmer responded with a cold grin. The orc behind Michael pressed the dagger against his throat, keeping him in check. Barug and his soldiers seethed with anger, but they felt helpless in the face of the criminals. Just in the nick of time, a large shadow loomed over them, casting darkness on the ground. All eyes turned upward, and they beheld a massive flying ship with green sails and a dark brown hull gracefully sailing through the sky. "Damn good timing," Elmer clapped his hands in appreciation. "Drop the ropes," Barug shouted, his voice laced with anger and impatience. The ship's crew swiftly obliged, lowering several ropes to the ground. They began descending using these ropes, aiming to assist with their escape. "We will leave the ship and your precious hero far away from Durin with an emergency light. You can pick him up later," Elmer declared as he confidently made his way up the ropes to the ship. The orcs followed, grasping the ropes tightly as Elmer activated a mechanism that hoisted them up to the ship. As they reached the ship's upper deck, Elmer took hold of the helm and expertly rotated the rudder. The massive airship began to turn slowly, its sails billowing as it adjusted course. Michael observed the ship's sails filling with wind, propelling it forward as they escaped from Durin. While they soared away from Durin, Michael couldn't help but notice the intricate runes etched into the sails and the glowing symbols that adorned the ship's hull. At the stern of the airship, there was a conspicuous large box, covered in an array of mysterious runes. With a sense of curiosity, he activated his X-ray vision, revealing a potent energy signature emanating from within the box. "You can take the dagger away, my man," Michael spoke to the orc. The orc, under Elmer's watchful eye, reluctantly sheathed the dagger that had been pressed against Michael's throat moments earlier. With the blade no longer a threat, Michael stretched his muscles, the tension slowly dissipating. "Are you going to tell us your next move?" Elmer inquired, his hands steady on the rudder. "I have a few matters to attend to in Durin," Michael began, his tone casual. "In the meantime, if you happen to identify a lucrative target, feel free to let me know. But I must emphasize I'm not interested in small-time scores. If I'm going to help you, it needs to be a big heist. Don't concern yourself with the targets. Durin's got plenty of fat fish to plunder," Elmer assured. "However, the real question is, how do we get in touch with you?" "Meeting the rest of your Vilnius gang isn't on the table, I presume," Michael retorted, his skepticism clear. "Let's be realistic here, John. Trust isn't something that flows easily between us at this point. So, it's a tad premature to disclose our hideout to you," Elmer explained. However, he tossed a blue crystal, intricately engraved with a rune, toward Michael, who deftly caught it in mid-air. "It's a one-way communication crystal. When I've selected our next target, it'll get in touch," Elmer elucidated. As the airship soared further away from the Durin kingdom, they eventually arrived at a breathtaking sight. A vast white flower field that stretched endlessly across the land under a tumultuous, stormy sky. The field was a mesmerizing sight, the white blossoms contrasting starkly against the dark, brooding clouds above. Elmer, still at the helm, turned to Michael, addressing him by the alias John. "This is where we part ways, John." Michael gazed out at the expanse of white flowers, his curiosity piqued. "What are you planning to do with the airship?" he inquired. Elmer couldn't help but chuckle at the question. The Duran orcs believe they can track us using the runes embedded in this ship, but they're in for a surprise. He gestured to the orcs surrounding him, who were stifling laughter. Well, strip this ship down and salvage the parts, then sell them for a handsome sum of gold coins. The orcs accompanying Elmer burst into raucous laughter, their rough voices mocking the supposed ineptitude of the Duran orcs. Track us, my foot, one of them guffawed. The Duran orcs always were a bit slow, another orc chimed in with a grin. Elmer, still amused, added, exactly. They underestimate the Vilnius gang. Now, John, our paths diverge here. Keep that communication crystal close. When the time is right, I'll be in touch. Michael nodded, and with a final glance at Elmer and his boisterous orc comrades, he stepped off the airship and onto the pristine flower-covered land, ready for his next move. Standing amidst the sprawling field of white flowers, Michael watched as the airship receded into the distant horizon, a mere speck in the expansive sky. With a deep breath, he activated the earpiece. Hello, Pink, he spoke softly. Pink's voice crackled to life on the other end. Ghost, what happened? Did you meet Gilrut? With a hint of amusement in his tone, Michael recounted every detail of the events that unfolded within Ridion Funds, painting a vivid picture of his encounter with Elmer and the Vilnius gang. Pink's voice radiated excitement and disbelief. So, we're robbing banks now? I never thought I'd see the day. Michael replied in a matter-of-fact tone, We need funds, Pink. This is the quickest way to amass the wealth we require. Pink acknowledged the necessity of their actions. True, we do need the funds. But are you sure about this? It sounds dangerous. Michael reassured her. Elmer has a spider on him. We'll have our eyes on him at all times. Pink's response was filled with satisfaction. That's wonderful. Determined to assist Pink further, Michael proposed, I'll help you connect Elmer's spider to one of the mirrors in your room so you can keep a close watch on him. Curiosity piqued, Pink inquired, What's your next move, Ghost? Michael's voice held a hint of anticipation as he revealed his plan. Now it's time to befriend Gilrut and forge a new medallion. Chapter 1091. Runemaster Gilrut. As Michael contemplated his next steps, a soft voice resounded in his mind, reminding him of an important task. It was Iag, his loyal and ever-watchful Hydra. Ghost, Iag's voice whispered. It might be wise to use the emergency beacon now. Understanding the urgency, Michael reached into his pocket and retrieved a small, unassuming cube. Gripping it tightly in his hand, he crushed it with a swift motion. In an instant, a brilliant beam of red light shot skyward, cutting through the stormy clouds above. With the emergency signal sent, Michael sat down amidst the sea of white flowers, feeling their delicate petals beneath him. He turned his attention to Iag, who seemed curious about his next move. I'll wait here until Barug comes to pick me up, Michael explained, his eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of the approaching airship. Iag nodded in understanding. What comes next, Ghost? Michael's gaze turned resolute as he replied. Next, I need to befriend Gilrut and begin cultivating in this world. There's much to learn and accomplish. While he waited for Barug or any of the orcs to come and pick him up, Michael accessed the system to review his accumulated wealth from the heist at Ridion Funds. The system provided him with a detailed summary. The host has 20 million in gold coins. The rubies, diamonds, and other valuables should be traded to evaluate their value in gold coins, the system informed Michael. From the pile of gleaming gold coins, Michael plucked one and exited the system momentarily. Take a look at this coin, Michael said, presenting the divine gold coin to the three Hydra heads. It sparkled brilliantly under his grasp. Then, he retrieved a regular gold coin from the mortal realm. No wonder this world doesn't use these gold coins, Saba remarked, eyeing the comparatively dull coin from the mortal realm. In contrast to the divine gold coin, the mortal realm's currency seemed like a cheap metal. The divine gold coins were forged from pure gold, transcending the quality of any gold in the mortal realm. 20 million gold coins, huh? It wouldn't be worth exchanging them for a mere 800,000 badass points, Michael pondered to himself. The system then offered another piece of information. The system has compiled a list of alchemy ingredients needed to reconstruct the host's body to enable cultivation in this realm. The host can spend 2 million badass points to buy the ingredients or choose to acquire them from the realm of gods to save the points, the system stated. I should start by looking for the ingredients in Durin. I'll purchase as many as I can here, and the rest I can buy from you system, Michael informed the AI system. Exiting the system, Michael turned his attention to the approaching carriages in the distance. I hear the carriages approaching, Ghost, Saba noted. Finally, Michael replied, waiting patiently for the carriages to reach his location. The carriages finally came to a halt near the emergency light, their wooden wheels creaking as they stopped. Barug, a burly orc, emerged from one of the carriages and made his way over to where Michael was seated on the flower-covered ground. With a feigned air of weakness, Michael allowed the other orcs to assist him back to his feet. He looked at Barug with concern in his eyes. Are the hostages all right? Michael inquired, his voice filled with worry. Barug was taken aback by the human's genuine concern for the hostages, especially when he himself was bleeding from his wound. It was a rare sight to see such compassion in the criminal underworld. They're fine, Barug replied gruffly. We'll take you to the healer and patch you up. Michael nodded appreciatively and, with Barug's assistance, made his way into one of the waiting carriages. Barug settled into the carriage across from Michael, concern still etched on his rugged features. After a moment, he couldn't help but ask, what about Elmer and his gang? Did they say anything that might help us locate their hideout? Michael, still maintaining his facade of vulnerability, furrowed his brows as if deep in thought. He leaned in closer to Barug and lowered his voice conspiratorially. They were talking about killing someone. He paused for dramatic effect, watching Barug's eyes widen with surprise. Inside, Michael couldn't help but snicker at his own manipulation. Barug had no idea that he and Elmer had planned to work together. Killing someone? Barug echoed, clearly taken aback. Michael nodded solemnly. Yes, they mentioned it quite a few times. Barug nodded in understanding, his expression growing graver. We need to bolster our defenses then. If they're planning something like that, we can't afford to be caught off guard. Michael decided to play his final card. He looked Barug directly in the eyes, a note of earnestness in his voice. I would be forever in your debt if you could arrange a meeting with Gilrut, Michael said. I risked my life to get into that building for a reason. A small smile spread across Barug's face. That can be arranged quite easily. In fact, Gilrut has been asking to see the human who risked his life to get into the building. Michael was genuinely surprised by this news. Really? He asked, his curiosity piqued. Barug nodded with a hint of admiration in his eyes. Yes, he replied. Gilrut has expressed a keen interest in meeting the human who risked his life to save the hostages. It's not every day we encounter someone with such bravery in these dark times. Barug's curiosity seemed to grow as he leaned forward slightly. By the way, what's your name? He asked. Michael didn't hesitate. Had been using the name John with Elmer, so he decided to stick with it. John, he replied. John, you've got balls, I'll give you that, Barug said. Risking yourself like that, it's not something many would do. Michael feigned embarrassment, lowering his gaze. I did nothing special really, he said modestly. Just ended up being another hostage. Eventually, the carriage returned to the Kingdom of Durin, and Michael observed the Ridion Funds building passing by. The building was now surrounded by even more orcs. After a few more minutes, the carriage came to a halt. Once we patch you up, I'll take you to meet Lord Gilrut, Barug said. Barug led Michael into an emerald green building where they encountered a kindly, silver-haired woman. She inquired about what had transpired and listened attentively to Barug's account. Her face registered surprise as she processed the details. After a brief discussion, the woman provided Michael with a few potions and carefully applied a bandage to his chest. Once he was feeling a bit better, Barug led him to a grand establishment known as the Orc Tree Inn. The inn was an imposing structure, adorned with intricate wooden carvings and lush greenery. It exuded an air of rustic charm and grandeur. Lord Gilrut will be waiting for you in room 46, Barug informed Michael. You can go directly to meet him, our staff has been informed. Thank you, Michael replied sincerely, appreciating Barug's assistance. As Barug patted him on the back, he added, And John, don't leave the kingdom without informing me. I might need to take your witness statement again for more information. After all, you were one of the witnesses. Of course, Lord Barug, Michael said, showing his willingness to cooperate. With that, Barug bid him farewell. As he left, he couldn't help but sigh and say, "Once the Ridion Funds guys finish sweeping the empty vault, they're going to come bringing their whole wrath down on my head." Michael entered the Orc Tree Inn, crossing the threshold into an elegant establishment. The interior exuded an air of refinement, with wooden beams crisscrossing the ceiling, casting intricate patterns of shadows on the polished wooden floor. Soft, ambient lighting emanated from ornate lanterns hanging from the walls, creating a warm and inviting atmosphere. As he stepped further into the inn, a young orc woman, dressed in flowing green robes, approached him with a welcoming smile. Her demeanor was courteous and professional. "Lord Gilrut has been expecting you in room 46, Michael informed the orc woman. She quickly realized his intent and nodded. "Follow me," she said to Michael, gesturing for him to accompany her. Together, they ascended a grand staircase that led to the upper levels of the inn. Arriving at the top floor, they reached a grand and imposing door. The number 46 was finely engraved on a polished brass plate, marking the room. With a polite nod, the young orc woman said, "You can go inside and meet Lord Gilrut." Michael acknowledged her guidance with a nod of his own, and gently pushed open the door to room 46. When Michael pushed the door open, he stepped into an elegant and spacious penthouse. Lord Gilrut was engrossed in conversation with several armored orcs. As Michael entered, Gilrut gracefully concluded his meeting, dismissing the orcs to give his full attention to their guest. Approaching Michael with a slight courteous smile, Gilrut greeted him. "You must be the one Office Barug was talking about. I wish we had met under different circumstances." Michael nodded in agreement, replying, "Me too, Lord Gilrut. But I am glad no one got hurt." Gilrut's gaze fell on the bandage adorning Michael's chest, and his expression shifted to one of sympathy. "The same can't be said for you. I heard what those vile beasts did. I am very sorry." Michael shook his head modestly. "You don't have to, Lord Gilrut. We should be glad they didn't take any lives." Lord Gilrut invited Michael to take a seat on a plush green sofa. As Michael settled onto the comfortable upholstery, Vidora rested beside him. Gilrut chose to sit opposite him. "Lord Gilrut, I must confess something. I was sent by someone to meet you," Michael began, catching Gilrut off guard. "Who sent you?" Gilrut inquired, his curiosity piqued. "Vina." "Vina sent me," Michael replied, "using Pink's name within this world." Gilrut's eyes widened at the mention of her name. A range of emotions flickered across his features. For a few moments, he was rendered speechless. "Vina? How? How is she?" Gilrut asked, disbelief lacing his words. "She told me everything about you and what happened. She told me you owe her one. So it's time for her to cash in that favor," Michael explained. "Ha ha ha ha, she still remembers, huh? What do you need?" Gilrut inquired, his demeanor more relaxed. In response, Michael retrieved the tree-shaped medallion hanging from his neck and pointed to it. "I want your help in forging a medallion just like this one," Michael stated. Gilrut leaned in closer and donned a pair of half-moon glasses. As he examined the intricate, glowing runes etched into the medallion, his body trembled. Are you a god?" Gilrut muttered in complete shock. Chapter 1092 New Medallion. While the medallion had indeed been forged by a goddess, Gilrut astutely discerned the purpose of the runes etched upon it with a single glance. Michael couldn't help but be impressed by the orc's talent. He had a hunch that Gilrut's abilities rivaled those of Eladir himself. However, the question Gilrut posed caught Michael off guard. "What are you talking about?" Michael responded, feigning ignorance and avoiding any revelation of his divine nature. It wasn't time to disclose his godly status to Gilrut. Yet, Gilrut appeared unwavering in his certainty. "This medallion. It's for suppressing a god's aura. And you are wearing it. What's happening there? What's Gilrut saying?" Pink's voice crackled through the earpiece. Observing the unyielding confidence in Gilrut's eyes, Michael realized there was no fooling the orc. "He's asking me if I'm a god or not," Michael responded to Pink, further astonishing Gilrut. The orc hadn't detected the conversation taking place through the earpiece. Shit. How did he find out? But then again, that man is a prodigy. "I guess he really is that talented," Pink sighed. "How do you plan to handle him?" Pink inquired. "How do you think I should handle him?" "He's looking at me right now," Michael replied, surprising Pink. What? Is she there? Pink was taken aback. Michael promptly removed the earpiece from his ear and tossed it into the air, where it hovered between them. Vina, you might want to speak to Gilrut. You're in speaker mode, Michael advised. Vina? Gilrut was bewildered. He inspected the device suspended in the air, trying to discern its nature, yet found no runes or energy emanating from it. Instead, he heard Vina's unmistakable voice. Hey, Gilrut, Pink greeted. Gilrut was taken aback, his surprise evident. He scrutinized the mysterious device, baffled by its unknown capabilities. What kind of device is this? Gilrut asked. It's me, Gilrut. I wish I could meet you in person, but, I can't step into Durin, Pink admitted, her laughter tinged with nervousness. Yeah, you should be in a mental asylum. But I can tell you're not there, Gilrut responded, sharing a chuckle. I never expected you to have a god friend, Gilrut remarked, his tone turning serious. We've known each other for years. Trust me when I say this, Gilrut, you should help him out. Don't worry about the Pantheon. Just assist him, and no one will know you helped us, Pink implored. Enov. LB/in. This is a big favor, Vina. But I'm indebted to you, so I'll do it, Gilrut conceded with a sigh. He was an orc who loathed owing anyone anything. Therefore, even though aiding a rogue god would imperil his own safety, Gilrut chose to take the risk. Besides, Gilrut had no loved ones left to care about him. Gal had taken the life of the one woman who had loved him. As a result, Gilrut had adopted a reckless attitude towards death. Follow me, Gilrut declared, rising to his feet and taking a deep breath. Following behind Gilrut, Michael observed as the orc reached a set of bookshelves. With a practiced hand, Gilrut selected a particular book from the shelf. As he did so, Michael heard a soft click, and the bookshelf slid open, revealing a concealed door. Secret room in a tavern? Michael quipped with an amused smile. Gilrut turned towards him, a grin on his face. I own this penthouse, and nobody in the tavern knows about this room. With curiosity piqued, Michael watched as Gilrut placed his hand on the metallic door. Runes etched into the surface began to glow softly. With a faint hiss, the metal door swung open, revealing a well-lit secret chamber. The room was adorned with various tables, intricate runes adorning the walls, a grand chandelier hanging from the ceiling, and more bookshelves. The man who designed and built this building was a friend of mine, Gilrut explained. He didn't include this room in the official plans as a favor to me. Once inside the room, the door sealed shut behind Michael. Vidora remained perched on his shoulder as he leaned against the wall. You can now remove that medallion. This room is guarded against the Pantheon censors, Gilrut explained. Michael obliged, removing the medallion and handing it to Gilrut. The orc placed it carefully on the table before him and began examining the runes using a magnifying glass. So tell me, Vina, what have you been doing since you escaped Durin? Gilrut inquired, trying to maintain conversation with Pink to avoid direct interaction with a god. Just searching for my god friend there, Pink chuckled, not revealing much. Speaking of which, what god is he? Gilrut directed his question at Pink, rather than addressing Michael directly. Why don't you ask him? Pink retorted, as Gilrut's curiosity got the better of him. It wasn't every day he could witness a god in his true physical form within his own room. You sure this room will keep my presence hidden from the Pantheon? Michael inquired, seeking reassurance. Yes, Gilrut affirmed. Why do you have a secret room with runes to prevent the Pantheon censors from picking up? Pink probed further. Not everyone is very fond of worshipping Naribo Vina, Gilrut replied firmly, indicating that this was a matter between him and the orc god Naribo. As far as Michael was concerned, any disputes between them were not his concern. Scare him, Iag whispered to Michael. Since Vidora was disguised as a three-headed serpent, none of the serpent's heads spoke. You really want to know what god I am? Michael inquired, catching Gilrut's attention. Seeing Gilrut's expectant expression, Michael activated the power of darkness. The entire room was plunged into pitch-black darkness. The chandeliers and runes lost their glow, and the room felt suffocated by an oppressive shadow. Gilrut couldn't see a thing. This darkness was unlike anything he had ever experienced. You are the god of darkness, Gilrut finally realized the nature of the god before him. As the darkness slowly faded away, returning the room to its previous state, Gilrut was visibly shocked. He stuttered, "You are the god of darkness." Pink chimed in with a playful tone, "Don't go having a heart attack on me now." However, Michael cut their banter short and got straight to the point. "I need a medallion that can hide my presence from the pantheon." Gilrut, now somewhat recovered from his shock, took the medallion in his hands and began examining it closely. His fingers traced the intricate runes etched onto its surface as he thought deeply. This medallion has runes to conceal a god's aura. However, since it wasn't crafted with a specific god in mind, attempting to use a god's power with it would render the medallion ineffective and making it detectable by the pantheon's sensors, Gilrut explained. Michael inquired, "Can you craft a new medallion specifically for me, one that won't be detected by the pantheon?" Gilrut nodded, "I can create the rune design, mimicking the ones inscribed in this room, but it will take some time, at least 3 days. However, you'll need a skilled blacksmith to forge the actual medallion. Once it's made, I can engrave the runes onto it." He continued, "These runes require a constant energy supply to remain effective, so you will also need celestial energy crystals." Michael inquired, "You don't have to worry about a blacksmith. I can forge the medallion. But do you know any place I can obtain the celestial crystals?" He knew that back in the mortal realm, he could mine arch-energy crystals from the Stormville mountain, where Mugashiku slumbered. However, he was new to the realm of gods and uncertain where to find celestial crystals. He was aware that such a precious resource would likely be well guarded. Gilrut responded, "There is a mine here in Durin, but it's heavily protected by Naribo's angels. If you wish to avoid attracting the pantheon's attention, which I assume is your goal, you'll have to purchase the crystals. Low-grade crystals can power the runes for a day, mid-grade for a week, and high-grade for at least 3 weeks." Michael nodded, "I see. Are these crystals expensive?" Gilrut confirmed, "Very. But you can purchase them if you have the coins from the Celestial Palace. Its branch is located here in Durin, just a couple of blocks away," Gilrut informed him. Gilrut continued, "Since you won't have a medallion for 3 days, you can wait in this room. Afterward, I can provide you with a low-grade crystal. With that, you can leave and purchase more crystals." 3 days swiftly passed by. During that time, Michael had purchased the necessary metals from the system to forge the medallion he desired. In the room, they both worked diligently towards their goals. Gilrut meticulously inscribed tiny, intricate runes onto a glowing, strange metal he had. His expertise in runecraft was undeniable, and he worked with both precision and care. On the other side of the room, Michael silently forged the medallion. Using his dark flames, he melded and shaped the metal into a skull-shaped form, with every detail painstakingly perfected. It was a fusion of craftsmanship and divine power. As the 3 days passed, the room was filled with an air of concentration and determination. Michael and Gilrut, 2 very different beings, shared the same goal. "Done," Gilrut declared, his voice laden with fatigue. Vidora, curled up in the corner of the room, slept peacefully. After an intensive 3-day effort, Gilrut had successfully engraved the intricate runes into the skull-shaped medallion that Michael had forged. In the process, he had repurposed some of the runes from Marla's medallion, effectively destroying it. "It's beautiful," Michael marveled as he held the small skull medallion in his hand. "Show me how to power this medallion," Michael requested. Gilrut agreed with a nod and retrieved a dim blue crystal from his pocket. He clenched his fist around the crystal, shattering it. As he opened his hand, a radiant energy appeared, hovering above his palm. Simultaneously, the medallion in Michael's hand quivered. It absorbed the celestial energy, warming up, and the eyes in the skull design glowed dimly in a shade of red. "It's ready. This will keep you hidden from the pantheon even if you employ your godly powers. However, remember that it's not a foolproof solution. The pantheon's detection array for rogue gods is extremely powerful. So although the medallion will conceal your presence, use your godly powers sparingly, only when absolutely necessary," Gilrut advised Michael. With a firm nod of comprehension and a renewed sense of purpose, Michael hung the medallion around his neck. Taking a deep breath, he prepared to leave the room. "It's time to start cultivating in this world," Michael said before leaving the room. Chapter 1093. Time for a grand heist. With a newly acquired medallion securely hanging from his neck, Michael navigated the bustling streets of Durin. Vidora remained asleep in his room as he blended into the festival crowd. "This harvest festival seems like a big deal," Michael remarked, his gaze wandering over the vibrant celebrations. "Yeah. Every year, the orcs invite people from all kingdoms and worshippers of all gods to celebrate their harvest. Say what you want, the food they serve in the festival is damn delicious," Pink chimed in through the earpiece. The mention of delicious food brought thoughts of his wife, Gaia, to Michael's mind. She was quite the food enthusiast. "I wonder what she's doing," Michael mused to himself as he weaved through the festivities. "Now that you have the medallion, what's our next move?" Pink inquired. "I need to gather some alchemy ingredients to start cultivating in this world," Michael explained. "Then you should head to Eden's Garden. It's right next to the Celestial Palace," Pink suggested. "Right, I'll remember that," Michael mentally noted. "I also need to sell everything I stole from Ridion funds." "I assume selling them in the Celestial Palace is out of the question," Michael asked Pink. "Enov. LB/in. Okay, I've heard rumors about some black market operations in Durin, but I don't know their locations or how to contact them." "I doubt Gilrut does either," Pink admitted. "Officer Barug might be able to help," Michael pondered. Given Barrag's position as a law enforcement officer in Durin, he would likely have knowledge of the black market in the kingdom. Obtaining information from him could facilitate the sale of the stolen Ridion funds valuables for gold coins. After all, Michael had no personal use for items such as rubies, diamonds, or artifacts. Although artifacts infused with celestial energy could be absorbed, the artifacts in Ridion funds were merely decorative, favored by the wealthy for their aesthetic appeal. "Aren't you excited about us being together again?" Pink asked, seeking Michael's thoughts on their reunion. "I am," Michael affirmed, his smile evident in his voice. "However, we both know the rules of this world are different. If we mess up on Earth, we'll end up in jail. But if we mess up here, we'll be killed or worse," Michael cautioned Pink, tempering her enthusiasm. I know. But still, killing gods has a nice ring to it. "I just miss being paid though," Pink lamented, a tinge of disappointment audible in her voice. "I'm working on that," Michael assured her, raising Pink's curiosity. "I assume you're not going to tell me," Pink guessed, accustomed to Ghost's penchant for secrecy. "Yep," Michael replied simply. Amidst the lively celebration of the Orc Harvest Festival, with stalls offering delectable treats and vibrant performances taking place on the streets, Michael skillfully navigated through the cheerful crowd. The revelry was infectious, and the rich sense of exotic foods filled the air. As he continued his journey, he soon arrived at an awe-inspiring sight. A colossal white marble building, the Celestial Palace, rose before him, its grandeur and opulence drawing the gaze of all who passed by. Its majestic architecture, adorned with intricate carvings of gods and celestial beings, towered over the surrounding structures, exuding an air of divine authority. Beside the Celestial Palace stood another imposing building, one shaped like a giant leaf, Eden's Garden. The structure appeared to be an architectural wonder, a testament to the orcs' craftsmanship and their reverence for the natural world. With determination in his step, Michael approached the entrance of the Celestial Palace. The massive doors, ornately decorated with symbols of gods and celestial energies, swung open to welcome him. As he entered the palace's interior, he was greeted by an air of solemnity and reverence. Orcs and devotees of various gods moved about with hushed voices, their eyes cast downward in respect. Making his way to the central hall, Michael inquired about the purchase of celestial crystals. He was directed to a counter where an elderly orc, adorned in robes of deep blue, awaited. The orc regarded him with wise eyes, recognizing the seriousness in Michael's request. "Welcome to the Celestial Palace. How may I assist you today?" the elderly orc inquired, his voice carrying an air of dignity. "I'm in need of celestial crystals," Michael replied, keeping his tone respectful. The orc nodded, understanding the significance of the request. "Celestial crystals are indeed precious. May I know your purpose for requiring them?" "It's a secret, but I am researching new types of runes. So these new runes of mine require a substantial amount of energy," Michael replied. Pink had mentioned that the orcs held scholars in high regard, particularly those driven by a thirst for knowledge and a desire to create new things. As Pink had predicted, the old orc's eyes lit up with interest upon hearing Michael's explanation. It was not uncommon for scholars and runemasters to embark on endeavors involving novel runes. Thus, the orc didn't press Michael further on the matter. I understand, my lord. Please take a seat. The orc gestured for Michael to sit at the counter. He retrieved an emerald box, opening it to reveal several glowing crystals. We have mid and high-grade celestial crystals, directly from the Morena mine. As we all know, crystals from Morena mines are the purest and contain the most energy, the orc explained as he placed the crystals on the table. Depending on your runes, you can choose either these mid-grade crystals, the orc pointed to the deep-sea blue crystals, or high-grade crystals, he added, indicating the dark purple ones. What is the price difference between the mid-grade and high-grade crystals? Michael inquired. Well, the mid-grade crystals are priced at 100,000 gold coins each, while the high-grade ones are 300,000, the orc answered. Michael was taken aback by the cost but maintained his composure. Unfortunately, the prices are fixed, the orc added before Michael could attempt to negotiate. I'll take 10 high-grade crystals, Michael said, surprising the orc. That will cost you 3 million gold coins, the orc replied. His astonishment stemmed from the fact that he hadn't seen this young man before, and his attire didn't suggest affiliation with any prominent families in Durin. He couldn't help but wonder who this young man was. What can I say? The pursuit of knowledge often comes at a high price. But one cannot halt their quest for greatness due to monetary concerns, Michael responded, adopting the tone of a true scholar. That is true. The old orc agreed, his respect for the young human scholar soaring to new heights. After subtly manipulating the orc's feelings toward knowledge seekers, Michael made the purchase, which included a complimentary space ring. Is there anything else I can assist you with, my young lord? Asked the orc. I also require some alchemical ingredients for a friend of mine, and I've heard that Eden's Garden is the best place to make such a purchase. Do you also recommend this place? Asked Michael. That is indeed the place for purchasing alchemical ingredients, the old orc affirmed. Although they offer the finest quality, it's worth noting that their prices are rather steep. I must admit, I hold no love for the money-hungry establishment that is Eden's Garden. With a contemptuous glance towards the mention of Eden's Garden, the orc continued, they hold a near monopoly on all the alchemical ingredients in Durin, so whatever price they present, it's non-negotiable. The orc leaned in slightly, as if sharing a secret. If you're in no rush, I'd recommend looking for alchemical ingredients outside of Durin. You might find more reasonable prices elsewhere. Michael let out a sigh of resignation. I'm afraid I'm in quite a hurry, so I have little choice but to purchase from Eden's Garden. The old orc nodded sympathetically. True, they do offer the finest quality, so that's a silver lining. As Michael turned to leave, the old orc gave him one last piece of advice. One more thing, my young lord. Don't be disheartened by their poor customer service at Eden's Garden. Focus on the quality of their goods and try not to mind their lack of courtesy. Exiting the grandiose celestial palace, Michael found himself in the equally imposing Eden's Garden, where alchemy ingredients were sold. The interior of the shop was extravagant, with polished marble floors, intricate wooden shelves, and rows upon rows of glass cabinets displaying various rare and exotic ingredients. Approaching a counter where an old woman stood, Michael tried to purchase a list of alchemical ingredients. The old woman, however, greeted his request with indifference, her eyes barely leaving the ancient tome she was reading. I need these ingredients, Michael said politely, sliding the list towards her. She glanced at it, sighed audibly, and then begrudgingly started gathering the items. Mandrake root, powdered phoenix feather, moonlit dew. What are you even making with this stuff? Michael hesitated for a moment, then replied, It's a secret recipe. The old woman rolled her eyes. Of course, it's a secret. Always is, isn't it? As she retrieved each item, she muttered under her breath about the inconvenience of her job. Michael couldn't help but feel a sense of frustration growing within him at the lack of courtesy. While Michael waited for his alchemical ingredients, another customer at a nearby counter reached his boiling point. He slammed his fist onto the counter and yelled, This is ridiculous. The prices are astronomical, and your attitude stinks. The staff member on the other side of the counter shrugged dismissively. Take it or leave it. We don't care. Overhearing this exchange, Michael couldn't help but feel some camaraderie with the frustrated customer. However, his attention was quickly drawn back to the old woman who had been assisting him. After finally gathering all the items, the old woman placed them on the counter and looked at Michael with a grin that seemed to say she had him cornered. That'll be 2 million gold coins. Michael was visibly startled by the price and asked incredulously, 2 million? Isn't that a bit much? The old woman scoffed. Poor people like you always think that way. If you can't afford it, don't waste my time. Either buy it or get the hell out. Michael frowned, feeling a mix of frustration and anger. You know, if you were a bit more polite, maybe customers would want to return here. The old woman let out a harsh laugh. Return? They always return. Because they have no choice. Michael's expression turned dark, and he growled. You know, it's funny how people who think they're untouchable are usually the ones who are most vulnerable. With that, he retrieved a space ring filled with coins and transferred the required amount. The old woman snickered as she took the ring, counting the coins before tossing the ingredients carelessly into an emerald green box. As Michael left the counter, he muttered to himself with a devilish grin, I wonder how they'll feel when I clean out this place. As Michael stepped out of the Eden's garden, he cast one last look at the imposing building before speaking to Pink. Hey Pink, I think it's about time we contact Elmer. I've got a new target in mind for our next heist, Michael said. Pink's voice buzzed with excitement. Finally, some action. But please tell me it's not the Celestial Palace. Michael grinned. No, we're not going for the Celestial Palace. Our target is the Eden's Garden. With that, Michael left the building, his thoughts already formulating a plan for their next daring escapade. Chapter 1094 Eden's Garden Heist Planning. After deciding to target the Eden's Garden, Michael returned to Gilrut's penthouse. His decision wasn't solely due to the establishment's poor customer service. He had multiple reasons. He needed more alchemy ingredients for creating new potions and pills. He wanted to assess Elmer and his crew's efficiency in another robbery, and of course he required additional funds. Planning Raynar's assassination wasn't going to be cheap, and he believed it was time to teach Eden's Garden a lesson. No one was untouchable. Did you manage to acquire the crystals? Gilrut inquired as Michael entered the penthouse. He glanced at Vidora, who was still peacefully asleep in the corner. Michael carefully picked them up and placed Vidora on the sofa. Michael's attention to his familiar didn't go unnoticed by Gilrut, who appreciated the god's care for his companion. Yes, I got them, Michael replied. Gilrut visibly relaxed at the confirmation. Michael continued, expressing his gratitude. Thank you for your assistance. I might need your expertise in runes again in the future, but that'll be the last time, Michael explained. Curious, Gilrut questioned. For what purpose? What else? I'll require your help with runes. Here, take this, Michael handed Gilrut an earpiece. I'll reach out when I need you, Michael added. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have other matters to attend to, Michael said, heading towards Gilrut's hidden chamber. With the alchemy ingredients secured and the necessary prerequisites in place, Michael decided to initiate the body transformation process. Gilrut nodded in understanding as he watched Michael enter the concealed room. Once inside, Michael selected a dark corner and settled down. System, provide me with the recipe for the potion you want me to brew, Michael requested, and a golden parchment materialized in his hand. With the recipe in hand, Michael summoned his dark flames. One by one, he fed the ingredients into the flickering abyss. A single day passed by in the blink of an eye, accompanied by an unusual radiance that enshrouded Michael's body. His skin shimmered beneath the ethereal glow, while his shoulder-length black hair danced in the gentle breeze. Amid this spectacle, celestial energy from the surrounding atmosphere gradually flowed towards Michael, converging at his forehead. The system is absorbing the experience points. Michael heard the system's voice echoing in his mind. The experience points he had accumulated, mainly from defeating the angels, began to transform into energy, slowly seeping into Michael's newly formed meridians. Congratulations to the host for reaching the initiate realm. Congratulations to host Michael for leveling up. The current stage is Initiate Realm. Experience points converted, 20,000. Experience points converted, 30,000. Experience points converted, 40,000. Congratulations to host Michael for leveling up. The current stage is Chi Awakening Realm. N/OV-L-B-I-NAS Michael entered the Chi Awakening Realm. The lights in the room, including the runes, flickered with intensity. Celestial energy within the room surged towards Michael, forming a miniature whirlwind of power around him. This surging energy was promptly assimilated into his body. Michael felt the newfound energy coursing within him, invigorating both his spells and physical capabilities. Simultaneously, the medallion adorning his neck began to quiver. Sensing the medallion's warmth on his neck, Michael flicked his wrist, summoning a purple celestial crystal into his palm. With a clenched fist, he reduced the crystal to a fine powder, which was promptly absorbed by the medallion. The Qi awakening stage has enhanced the energy absorption rate from the energy devourer. The system's voice notified Michael. Slowly he opened his eyes, finding Vidora perched on a nearby table, gazing at him with curious eyes. "You're finally awake," Saba remarked. "And this better be the last time you leave us hanging with nothing to do," Ayag added, slightly irritated, addressing Michael. Deep within a bamboo forest, an unconventional village had taken root, constructed entirely from bamboo stalks. Upon first glance, one might have expected to find rustic villagers or humble farmers inhabiting the quaint village. However, the reality was quite different. Burly orcs clad in formidable armor and wielding an array of weapons prowled through the village's pathways. This secluded settlement was the secret lair of the Vilnius gang. Inside the central house, situated at the heart of the bamboo village, a small and cozy room served as the stage for the current drama. Elmer, the elven gang leader who Michael had encountered during their heist at the Ridion Funds, stood before an imposing orc with a long black beard adorned with gleaming gold chains. The orc was seated across a finely crafted mahogany table. Elmer maintained his composure while addressing the orc. "You've seen my judgment at work, Vilnius. When's the last time I steered us wrong? You're well aware of my value. It's the reason you keep me an elf as a gang leader and grant me my own crew," Elmer reasoned. Vilnius, the notorious leader of the Vilnius gang, reclined in his throne-like chair, scrutinizing Elmer with a measured gaze. "Yes, your value is undeniable," Vilnius admitted. "But even your worth has its boundaries, my friend. The fact that you unilaterally committed us to hand over 35% of our loot without consulting me is a misstep I cannot simply overlook." Elmer defended his actions earnestly, explaining the circumstances. "The runes proved to be far more powerful than we initially anticipated, Vilnius. Moreover, Gilrut was taking an agonizingly long time to do his part. Had it not been for the humans' intervention, Officer Barug would have caught us. Trust me, Vilnius, he's no ordinary man. He single-handedly breached the vault using sheer brute force, and there's something about him that unsettles me. I am obviously docking your share in the score. Be grateful I don't fuck you up for what you did. But since you are telling me that working with this John is more profitable to us than killing him, I want to meet him," Vilnius said to Elmer. "Fencing the artifacts and valuables you took from the Ridion funds is going to be a pain in the ass, and you know it. This is precisely why I advised against targeting the Ridion funds," Vilnius grumbled. "I still managed to pull it off with the dumbest crew," Elmer quipped, rolling his eyes. "Share the news with your dumb crew that they won't be receiving their cut due to their leader's generosity," Vilnius retorted coldly. Elmer harbored a glimmer of hope that his decision to partner with John would yield significant dividends in the future, as he had just relinquished a substantial portion of their haul. "Now, set up a meeting with this John. I want to meet him face to face," Vilnius demanded, ending the discussion. However, an abrupt interruption occurred when a panicked orc hastily entered the room. "You'd better have an excellent reason for barging into my chamber," Vilnius growled at the intruding orc. "Boss, there's a human here. He says he wants to speak with Elmer," the orc stammered, his face etched with shock. Upon hearing the news, both Elmer and Vilnius were astounded. "What?" Elmer exclaimed in disbelief. Vilnius was equally taken aback and growled his displeasure. Their secret hideout had been kept under wraps, known only to the core members of their gang. To discover that a human had somehow found their location and was requesting to see Elmer was unfathomable. Wasting no time, Vilnius and Elmer swiftly exited the room. As they emerged, they were greeted by a group of orcs surrounding a human figure cloaked in black robes. The dark, stormy atmosphere added an ominous aura to the situation. Despite being encircled by armed orcs and elves, the human remained composed. "John?" Elmer inquired, recognizing him. "That's John," Vilnius asked with a furrowed brow. "I swear, Vilnius, I have no idea how he found this place," Elmer hastily explained. However, Vilnius seized Elmer by the throat, hoisting him off the ground. Damn it, Vilnius. I'm not foolish enough to reveal our hideout's location to him. I swear, Elmer stammered, his voice strained as Vilnius continued to exert pressure on his throat. Release him. Vilnius. Your hideout isn't as covert as you think, John calmly stated. How did you locate this place? Vilnius demanded, all while not loosening his grip on Elmer. Sigh. Michael sighed audibly. I'm here to discuss a business proposition, not to fight. Release him, Michael requested, as small bolts of lightning began to crackle around his wrists. In an instant, Michi unleashed an incredible burst of speed. His body blurred as he employed his lightning dash spell, moving so swiftly that it seemed like a mere illusion. As he approached Vilnius, he activated the silent spell, slowing down the passage of time within its vicinity. The world around him seemed to lose its frenetic pace, as if time itself had been gently put on hold. Michael reached Vilnius and deftly released Elmer from the gang leader's grip. With a fluid movement, he returned to his original position, leaving Vilnius stupefied. Vilnius, who had been holding Elmer firmly, was suddenly startled as he realized he no longer had a captive in his grasp. His gaze darted around, searching for Elmer. What had just transpired defied the laws of physics as he understood them. To his astonishment, he found Elmer standing beside John, blinking in confusion. Elmer himself was baffled, unable to comprehend how he had gone from being captured by Vilnius to standing freely beside their unexpected guest. What? What just happened? Elmer muttered, his voice tinged with bewilderment. Vilnius, equally perplexed, could only stammer, shit. The members of the Vilnius gang remained stunned, unable to fully grasp the mysterious events that had just unfolded. With Elmer now free, Michael turned his attention back to Vilnius, his tone firm and unyielding. Now, if you stop wasting my time, I have a place to rob. Are you interested or not? Michael's words left no room for further discussion. Having witnessed the astonishing display of Michael's power, Vilnius had little choice but to heed the enigmatic John's request. I am listening. But first, tell me, how did you find this place? Vilnius inquired cautiously, his gang members still on high alert. I'm not a spy, in case you're wondering, Michael replied, dispelling any doubts. Very well, come inside, and we'll talk. But should you attempt anything funny, rest assured, I have my own methods for dealing with individuals like you, Vilnius warned, his eyes fixed on Michael. With a nod, Michael followed Vilnius into the house, Elmer trailing behind. Once inside, Vilnius settled into his chair, leaning forward. Now tell me, what do you hope to gain from meeting the Vilnius gang? Vilnius inquired. As I mentioned to Elmer, I'm planning my next heist, Michael replied plainly. Vilnius leaned back, intrigued but cautious. So, you're seeking a crew then? Very well. What's the target? He asked. Michael's response was delivered with a cold smile that sent shockwaves through the room. The Eden's Garden. Chapter 1095. Eden Gardens heist planning 2. Vilnius couldn't help but laugh heartily at Michael's audacious plan. Robbing the Eden's Garden? You must be truly mad if you think that's possible, he chuckled, shaking his head. He leaned back in his chair, his expression turning more serious. Even if, by some miracle, we managed to rob the place, there's no way we could sell the alchemical items we steal in the black market without alerting the higher-ups at Eden's Garden. That kind of heat would destroy our gang, Vilnius warned, his tone filled with a hint of concern for his crew's well-being. Elmer, nodding in agreement, chimed in, Vilnius is right. There's a reason why nobody has ever tried to rob the Eden's Garden. Those who attempted it simply disappeared. Michael leaned back in his chair, a smug expression on his face as he gazed at Vilnius and Elmer. He could see the skepticism in their eyes, but he was ready to lay out his plan. You really think I don't know that? Michael replied with a chuckle, enjoying the suspense he was building. Elmer raised an eyebrow. His curiosity piqued. Selling raw alchemical goods in the black market would indeed alert the higher-ups and bring down the heat on us, Michael continued. But what if I told you we wouldn't be selling raw goods? Elmer leaned in, intrigued. What do you mean? He asked. Michael grinned, his plan coming together in his mind. We'll refine those raw alchemical goods into pills and potions, he explained. Selling those won't raise any eyebrows in the black market. People buy potions and pills all the time. N/O/V. E/L. BI-. And Vilnius couldn't help but snicker. You think it's that easy? To refine those goods, you'd need an alchemist who can handle such precious materials. Elmer added, even if we had an alchemist, it would take them ages to turn those goods into pills and potions. Meanwhile, the Eden Garden security would locate us. Vilnius couldn't resist a hearty laugh at the audacity of Michael's proposal. John, you really have a wild imagination if you think we can pull off something like that without getting ourselves killed. He then turned his mocking gaze towards Elmer. And Elmer, you spoke so highly of John here, but I didn't think he would be crazy as fuck. Michael remained calm, fully expecting this response from someone as formidable as Vilnius. He knew that Elmer was the strategist in the operation, so he shifted his gaze to the elf. Don't look at me. This plan is utterly insane. I have to say, John, I'm disappointed. Elmer sighed. Is that so? Michael chuckled softly, seemingly undisturbed by their skepticism. With a swift, practiced motion, he produced several alchemy ingredients, placing them on Vilnius' table. As their eyes widened, Michael summoned his dark flames. What the hell are you trying to pull? Vilnius growled, reaching for his weapon, suspecting an attack. But Michael ignored Vilnius' aggression. With one hand, he controlled the flames and with the other, tossed the alchemy ingredients into the burning vortex. Elmer watched in awe as the components transformed into essence, merging together to create dazzling pills. You're an alchemist? Elmer and Vilnius exclaimed in surprise. With a flick of his wrist, Michael presented the green pills to Vilnius. Despite his rough exterior, Vilnius recognized the exceptional purity of the pills. If you can't sell pills and potions like these in the black market, then you're not the person I was hoping to do business with, Michael declared coolly as he rose from his seat. He was about to make his exit when Elmer hastily halted him. John, wait, Elmer urged. Michael paused, and Elmer turned to Vilnius. Boss, at least let him explain. He must have some sort of plan, Elmer reasoned with hope in his eyes. After a moment of contemplation, Vilnius reluctantly agreed. Very well. You can entertain me with your scheme to rob Eden's garden, Vilnius conceded, his curiosity piqued. Michael leaned in. His eyes locked onto Vilnius as he began to unveil the initial phase of his audacious plan. The first thing we need is the blueprint of Eden's garden, he stated firmly. Vilnius couldn't help but snicker, mocking Michael's request. You don't even have the blueprint, and you're planning to rob the place? Michael smiled wryly. That's precisely why I need your help. I need your minions to do the legwork for me. Elmer, intrigued but cautious, chimed in. All right. So what's the actual plan? Michael leaned back, folding his arms, and began to explain. I've noticed the intricate runes scattered throughout Eden's garden. The key is that the garden closes every night at 11. There are no guards because they rely on various protective runes. Elmer's curiosity grew. So how do we break the runes? Are you a rune master too? Michael shook his head. No, I'm not a rune master, but I have a method. Michael continued with his explanation, his tone confident and calculated. Once I disable the runes, I'll signal your minions to enter the building next door. I'll provide precise locations when I have the blueprint. They'll create a hole through the wall into Eden's garden. Elmer couldn't help but voice his skepticism. John, I've seen you put all those gold coins and valuables into your space ring despite the runes on the valuables back in Ridion funds. Why do we need the minions to go into Eden's garden? Michael grinned at Elmer's question. Because once I disable the runes, we'll have just 5 minutes to clean out the entire place. That's where my special space rings come into play. Vilnius, aware of the immense value of such rings, couldn't contain his curiosity. Where did you get these space rings? Michael chuckled, his eyes glinting with amusement. That, my friend, is a secret I won't be sharing. Elmer frowned but motioned for Michael to continue with the plan. Michael nodded. Each of your crew members will use the space rings to clean out the place within 5 minutes. Then they'll escape through the same hole they entered. He turned his attention to Vilnius. Your role will be arranging a safe place for me to refine the pills and potions. Once that's done, you'll focus on selling them in the black market. Vilnius, still not entirely convinced, continued to voice his concerns. There are variables in this plan. How can you be sure you can break the runes? And 5 minutes to clean out the entire place is a tall order. Michael remained composed. I'll handle the heavy lifting when it comes to the runes. Your focus should be on selling the pills and potions. Vilnius stroked his beard, his mind calculating the risks and rewards. All right, but how much of a cut are you expecting from this heist? Michael smiled, revealing a hint of his true intentions. Consider this heist a test of how your gang operates under my leadership. I'll take a modest 30% cut this time. But from the next heist onwards, it could be 50% or more. Vilnius was taken aback by the steep increase in Michael's demand. He tried to play his own cards. What if I were to tell the authorities about your plan to rob Eden's garden? Michael's response was chillingly simple. Then you will die. Suddenly, Vilnius felt a sharp sting in his neck. He gasped, feeling weak, and fell from his chair. Elmer, startled by the sudden turn of events, rushed forward. What happened? Vilnius, gasping for air, continued to cough up white foam from his mouth. Elmer, his eyes wide with shock, was frozen in place, his hand reaching for the guards. I wouldn't do that if I were you, Michael said calmly, producing a colorless liquid from his robe. I poisoned your boss because I don't appreciate his excessive questioning and attempts at blackmail. I don't react well to blackmail, Michael explained with an eerie composure as he walked over to Vilnius' chair and settled into it. Elmer, still in a state of disbelief, could only stare in stunned silence. Vilnius continued to cough up white foam, his face turning pale as Michael spoke with an unsettling calmness. If Vilnius doesn't take the antidote, Michael began, he will die. Elmer, his voice trembling, finally managed to speak. What kind of poison is this? Michael leaned forward, his eyes locked on Elmer's. A unique kind, he replied, pointing at the colorless liquid on the table. This is the antidote, but it will only suppress the poison for a week. After that, the poison will act up again, and Vilnius will need to take the antidote once more. A wicked chuckle escaped Michael's lips as he continued. And only I can brew this antidote, which means I own Vilnius now. He leaned back in his chair, his tone casual but menacing. Of course, Elmer, you can doubt me and refuse to give Vilnius the antidote, thinking I'm lying. You can let him die. Elmer realized the dangerous game they were now playing. He hesitated for a moment before saying, You're playing a dangerous game, John. Michael shrugged carelessly, a devilish grin tugging at his lips. You can be my knights in this game or just mere pawns I'll crush under my feet. Elmer hesitated, torn between the precarious choices before him. Vilnius mumbled something unintelligible as he began to close his eyes, the poison taking its toll on him. Michael chuckled coldly, his patience waning. Time is running out, he reminded them. With a steely resolve, he continued. From the moment I stepped into your territory, you became my gang. Elmer clenched his fists, torn by the weight of the decision he was about to make. Finally, he grabbed the antidote and poured it into Vilnius' mouth. Slowly, Vilnius stopped coughing up white foam and began to breathe normally again. As Vilnius rose back to his feet, he cursed Michael vehemently, his hand instinctively reaching for his sword. Before he could draw it, Michael snapped his fingers, and Vilnius roared in agony as he fell to the ground. Michael placed his foot on Vilnius' chest and leaned down, his voice dripping with cold determination. I own you now, bitch. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.